We spend our lives acquiring things cars, houses, gadgets, clothes, and think that these possessions bring us value. We take pride in what we own, often believing that material wealth defines us, or at least gives us a sense of stability. At times, owning things feels like a small victory in the chaotic rhythm of life. We work hard, save, and accumulate, believing that each new purchase, each new acquisition contributes to our happiness. The more we have, the more complete we feel. But as time passes, we realize something uncomfortable. These things, the possessions we once valued so much, are only temporary. They wear down, lose their usefulness, or become obsolete. In the end, the true currency, what we cannot get back, is time. Material things may provide comfort in the short term. A new car can make us feel proud. A new home can represent success. A shiny new phone may offer us the latest features. But how long do these things really last in our hearts? The thrill of a new purchase fades, and what once felt exciting becomes just another part of our routine. The joy of ownership diminishes as the novelty wears off. A house becomes a place to maintain. A car becomes just another mode of transportation. Even the most cherished possessions can eventually feel like burdens. At some point, we find ourselves giving away or selling what we once valued. The real challenge is in understanding what is truly valuable. If we look deeper, beyond the surface of material wealth, we start to notice that time is the only thing we truly control. It's the one thing we can't accumulate or recover. Time is finite. It's the most precious commodity we have. Once a moment passes, it is gone forever. You cannot buy back time with money. You can buy more things, but not more time. This realization is often uncomfortable, even painful, but it's also enlightening. Consider the moments when you've spent your time on things that truly matter: family, friendships, personal growth. These are the moments that shape us, that build lasting memories. They are not tied to possessions or wealth, but to experiences, connections, and self-improvement. You can lose a car or a house, but you can't lose a memory, a relationship, or a moment of personal growth. The value in these things is not in the material, but in the time and energy spent on them. We often think of time as something we spend on activities, much like we spend money, but unlike money, time is finite. We can't earn more of it once it's gone. Time is not something that can be stored up for later use. This gives it a certain kind of urgency. Every second that ticks by is an opportunity we cannot recover. We often waste time thinking that there will be plenty more. We delay, procrastinate, and defer our true desires, believing that there's always tomorrow. But when tomorrow comes, it's often too late. Opportunities pass, relationships wither, our health deteriorates, and the things we thought were important lose their meaning. We are left with the realization that time was the real currency we should have focused on all along. The tragedy is that in our obsession with accumulating material goods, we often forget to invest in the only thing that truly matters: our time. Time is the one thing we can give others that can't be replaced. When we spend time with loved ones, when we give our attention to someone or something, we are giving them our most precious resource. We might accumulate wealth, but we can't accumulate time. The clock keeps ticking for everyone, regardless of how much we've acquired. Consider the elderly person looking back on their life. It is not the cars they drove or the houses they lived in that they remember most. It's the moments they shared with others, the time spent nurturing relationships, the experiences that brought them joy, or the things they learned. Even the most financially successful person, when nearing the end of their life, will often say that what they regret most is not spending more time with their family, friends, or on things that brought them true fulfillment. No one ever lies on their deathbed wishing they had worked more, collected more things, or bought a bigger house. The regrets are always about time, the time spent away from the things that matter most. This illusion of ownership, the belief that acquiring things equates to true value, can easily cloud our judgment. The more we accumulate, the more we believe we have secured our place in the world. But when we step back and reflect, we see that the things we own are not what truly define us. What defines us is how we spend our time, who we spend it with, and what we choose to focus on. The wealth we gather does not make us any more complete. Only the moments, memories, and experiences we cultivate do. This shift in perspective requires a deep rethinking of our priorities. Instead of measuring success by the things we own, we should measure it by the time we dedicate to what really matters. It's about investing in relationships, in self-care, in the pursuit of passions, and in the cultivation of memories that will endure far beyond the material objects we accumulate. In the end, when we look back on our lives, we won't remember how many things we had, but how we spent our time. We won't regret what we owned, but what we chose not to spend time on. The illusion of ownership fades when we realize that true value comes from how we use our time. Every day is an opportunity to make that time count, to focus on what truly enriches our lives. This doesn't mean abandoning material possessions or success. It simply means shifting our focus to what truly enriches the human experience. The moments we share with others, the growth we achieve, and the contributions we make. As we go through life, it's essential to remember that the true measure of our existence is not the things we acquire, but the time we invest in what truly matters. We live in a world where appearances matter. From the way we dress to the way we speak, everything we do is often guided by what others will think. The self we present to the world is a version of ourselves that has been edited, refined, and often polished to meet certain expectations. It's not an accurate reflection of who we are on the inside, but a version of us that fits neatly into the boxes society expects. We are taught to hide our messiness, our flaws, and our imperfections. What we're rewarded for is being polished, confident, and composed, not being raw or vulnerable. The truth is, most people walk around with masks on, pretending to be someone they are not. This mask is crafted carefully, layer by layer, until it becomes difficult to tell where the mask ends and the real person begins. We have become experts at hiding the chaos that lives inside us. The emotions, thoughts, and fears that swirl within us are often left unspoken, tucked away under a carefully constructed surface. We show the world our best self, the one that we believe others want to see. This version of us is perfect, tidy, and controlled. But behind that mask is the real person, the one that might feel anxious, overwhelmed, uncertain, or unsure. The messy self that is often too vulnerable to show. Authenticity has become rare. In a world that constantly judges, there is little room for imperfection. If we are not careful, we begin to believe that the mask is the real us. We start to confuse the polished version of ourselves with our true essence. But in reality, the mask we wear is not who we are. It's a persona, a facade, a filtered version that only shows what we want others to see. We are not always confident. We are not always at ease. We do not always have it together. But these parts of us, the raw, unrefined aspects, are what make us human. Take a moment to think about the people you admire, the ones you consider strong and capable. Behind the scenes, they too are likely struggling with doubts, fears, and insecurities. They may wear masks, just as we do, presenting a picture of confidence and control. But underneath that, there's often a deeper truth. They too have their moments of uncertainty. They too hide parts of themselves from the world. The difference is that they may have become better at managing the chaos within, but the chaos is still there. It's part of being human. What makes us truly authentic is not the polished version of ourselves that we show the world, but the courage to reveal the chaos, the vulnerability, and the imperfections that make us who we are. Authenticity means being willing to strip away the mask and show the world who we truly are. Messy, imperfect, and real. It means being willing to show up as ourselves without pretense or fear of judgment. Think about the people who have had the greatest impact on your life. They are probably the ones who were honest, open, and unafraid to show their true selves. They didn't hide behind a mask. They weren't afraid to show their flaws, to share their struggles, and to be vulnerable. In their vulnerability, they became more human, more relatable, and more trustworthy. They didn't try to appear perfect. They just were. And that's what made them authentic. The truth is, the more we try to hide the chaos within, the more we lose touch with who we truly are. We become trapped in a cycle of trying to maintain an image of perfection, a cycle that leaves us feeling exhausted, disconnected, and unfulfilled. The more we hide, the more we lose ourselves. We become disconnected from our own emotions, our own needs, and our own desires. We start to live for the approval of others instead of for ourselves. There is power in embracing the chaos within. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, to show our true selves, we invite others to do the same. We create space for real connections, real relationships, and real experiences. It's in our vulnerability that we find strength. It's in our imperfections that we discover our true beauty. When we let go of the mask, we allow others to see the real us, and we allow ourselves to be seen for who we truly are. Consider the times when you felt most connected to others. These moments were probably not when you were at your best, when you were polished and perfect. No, the moments that truly connected you to others were likely the ones when you were real, when you allowed yourself to be vulnerable. Maybe it was a time when you were struggling and shared your struggles with someone else. Maybe it was when you admitted that you didn't have all the answers. In those moments, you showed your true self. And that's when real connection happens. The masks we wear are not only a defense mechanism against judgment, but they also keep us from experiencing the full range of human emotions. We hide behind the mask because we fear rejection, judgment, or failure. But by hiding, we rob ourselves of the richness of life. Life is not about being perfect. It's about embracing the imperfections, the struggles, and the messiness of it all. These are the things that make us human. These are the things that connect us to others. And these are the things that give life meaning. Authenticity doesn't mean we have to expose every aspect of ourselves to the world. It doesn't mean we need to share all of our fears and insecurities with everyone we meet. But it does mean that we can stop pretending to be something we are not. It means we can stop hiding behind a mask of perfection and embrace the messy, complicated, and beautiful parts of ourselves. When we do, we allow ourselves to live more fully, more honestly, and more connected to the world around us. It's time to take off the mask. It's time to stop pretending that we have it all together. It's time to embrace the chaos within and be unapologetically ourselves. Because in the end, it's not the polished, perfect version of ourselves that matters. It's the real, vulnerable, and imperfect us. That is where our true essence lies. That is where our true power is found. And that is where authentic connection happens. Pain is often seen as something to avoid, something that we try to escape as soon as it appears. We shy away from it, hoping it will pass quickly, seeking comfort wherever we can. Whether it's physical pain, emotional pain, or mental anguish, we typically wish it would vanish, leaving us with peace and ease. But pain is not just an unwanted experience. It's a powerful teacher that can reveal more about ourselves than any moment of comfort ever could. Comfort feels good, but it does not challenge us or make us grow. Pain, on the other hand, brings us face to face with our vulnerabilities and pushes us to explore the depths of who we are. Consider the last time you faced a difficult situation. Maybe it was a physical injury, a broken heart, or a tough decision that seemed impossible to make. At that moment, pain took hold of you. It felt overwhelming, perhaps even unbearable. But through that pain, you likely learned things about yourself you would never have known otherwise. You realized how strong you could be, how deeply you could feel, and how far your endurance could stretch. You learned where your limits were, and more importantly, you learned where your resilience came from. Pain forces us to confront the parts of ourselves we might otherwise ignore. It shows us our weaknesses, but it also shows us our strengths. In times of comfort, we are not forced to face anything challenging. We live in a state of ease, and while this feels good, it can also make us complacent. Comfort does not push us to grow. It is in moments of discomfort, in the moments of pain, where real growth happens. Think about a person who has never faced adversity. How much can they truly understand about their own capabilities? Without challenge, without struggle, there is no growth. The person who has never been tested may never discover their ability to endure hardship or overcome obstacles. Comfort, while pleasant, is a surface-level experience that can mask the potential for transformation. Pain has a way of cutting through that surface. It forces us to pay attention, to dig deeper into ourselves. It brings us closer to the raw, unfiltered parts of who we are. When we experience pain, we are forced to look at ourselves honestly. We can no longer hide behind distractions or ease. It's as if pain strips us down to our most basic form, revealing what's truly important and what we are capable of. Through this, we discover what we can withstand, how much we can endure, and what we are willing to fight for. Imagine someone recovering from a serious injury. In the beginning, it's difficult. They can't move freely, and the pain is intense. But over time, as they push through the discomfort, they begin to regain strength. With each step, they test their limits. At first, they are unsure of their ability to move forward, but with each day, they build more resilience. Through pain, they learn how much they can truly endure. Without that pain, there would be no progress. It is the very thing that forces them to grow stronger. This concept applies not only to physical pain, but also to emotional pain. Think of a person who has suffered the loss of a loved one. The grief is all-consuming, and at first, it seems impossible to bear. But through the pain, they begin to process their emotions, find a new sense of meaning, and eventually grow from the experience. They learn to appreciate the moments they had, to cherish memories, and to understand that life is fleeting. They are not the same person they were before the loss. The pain has shaped them into something more resilient, more compassionate, and more aware of the fragility of life. It is through the pain that they uncover a deeper understanding of themselves and the world around them. The wisdom of pain is not just about enduring hardship, it's about what we learn as we face it. Pain teaches us patience, humility, and strength. It teaches us to be present with ourselves and with the world around us. When we are in pain, we cannot ignore it. We must confront it head-on, and in doing so, we often discover parts of ourselves we never knew existed. It forces us to grow, whether we are ready for it or not. Think of the last time you faced a challenge that pushed you to your limits. Maybe it was a difficult conversation, a financial struggle, or a personal failure. In that moment, the pain felt intense, like a weight pressing down on you. But as time passed, you found ways to cope, to adjust, and to move forward. You learned something new about yourself. Perhaps you realized your ability to adapt, your capacity for forgiveness, or your determination to keep going despite the odds. Pain didn't break you, it made you stronger. It helped you uncover resources within yourself that you may not have known existed. The language of pain is one of honesty and rawness. It is a language that does not hide behind niceties or pleasantries. It does not give us the luxury of pretending everything is fine. Pain forces us to face the truth about ourselves, our lives, and the world around us. In contrast, comfort often allows us to ignore the truth. It lets us stay in a state of denial where everything appears easy and smooth. But in reality, we may be avoiding important lessons that we need to learn. Pain shakes us awake. It makes us see what is real and forces us to deal with it. In the end, pain is not something to be feared or avoided. It is an essential part of the human experience. Without pain, we would never grow, never learn, and never become the people we are capable of being. Pain is the crucible in which our resilience is forged. It is the fire that tempers the steel of our character. While comfort may provide temporary relief, it is pain that brings lasting transformation. It is through our struggles that we discover our true strength. It is through pain that we unlock the wisdom we need to live more fully and meaningfully. Freedom is often viewed as the ability to do anything you desire, to live without restrictions or limits. People often equate freedom with the absence of rules, thinking that the more choices they have, the freer they are. But true freedom isn't about doing whatever you want. It's about understanding what is truly worth pursuing, what is valuable, and making choices based on that wisdom. Without this understanding, freedom can quickly turn into chaos. When we lack direction, when we pursue every desire without discretion, we lose ourselves in a never-ending cycle of fleeting satisfaction. True freedom comes when we know what is worth wanting, and we make choices that reflect that. Think of a person who has endless resources, the ability to do anything. At first, it seems like this person has everything they could ever want. They can buy any car, visit any place, or eat anything they desire. But after a while, they might start to feel unfulfilled. They might begin to question if all these choices truly bring satisfaction, or if they're just distractions. The truth is, without a sense of purpose or wisdom, the ability to have anything you want becomes hollow. It's only when you understand what really matters, what truly enriches your life, that you can make choices that lead to genuine freedom. Freedom without wisdom is like a ship without a rudder. The ship can move, but it has no direction, and it risks crashing into the rocks. It's not enough to simply be able to move freely. One needs to know where they are going. The ability to choose is only valuable when the choices align with meaningful goals, values, and desires. This is where wisdom comes in. Wisdom is what helps us recognize what is truly worth pursuing. It's the guide that helps us steer our ship towards the right destination. Without it, we risk spending our lives chasing after things that ultimately leave us empty. Consider a person who has always wanted to be a successful business owner. They spend years working tirelessly, acquiring more and more wealth. But after achieving this success, they find themselves lonely, disconnected from their loved ones, and deeply dissatisfied. The problem wasn't that they achieved freedom in terms of financial success. The problem was that they never stopped to ask themselves if this was what they truly wanted. They never considered the deeper value of relationships, personal growth, or inner peace. In their pursuit of one goal, they neglected the things that bring lasting fulfillment. True freedom is not about chasing every desire that comes to mind. It's about having the ability to choose what aligns with your deeper values and understanding the consequences of those choices. It's easy to get caught up in the surface-level desires that society pushes on us. We're told that success means acquiring wealth, fame, or status. But these are not universal truths. They are often fleeting. What brings one person fulfillment might not bring the same to another. True freedom, then, lies in knowing what is worth pursuing for your unique self and pursuing it with clarity. Imagine someone who has learned to value experiences over material possessions. They might choose to spend their money on travel, on learning new skills, or on building relationships rather than buying expensive gadgets or clothes. This person's freedom is rooted in their wisdom about what truly brings happiness, things that are lasting and meaningful. They don't need to fill their life with endless distractions because they know what to desire. Their choices are aligned with their values, and in that alignment, they experience true freedom. In contrast, someone who simply acts on impulse or immediate desire might constantly chase after the next new thing, never satisfied with what they have. This can lead to a kind of emptiness, where the person feels free in the moment, but never fulfilled in the long term. They might buy a new car, only to find it doesn't bring the satisfaction they expected. They might go on vacation, but the trip doesn't leave them feeling refreshed. This cycle continues as each new desire is pursued without considering whether it's truly worth wanting. True freedom comes from the ability to make thoughtful, wise choices. It's about being able to reflect on what is important to you and pursuing those things with purpose. Freedom isn't about indulging in every whim or fulfilling every impulse. It's about choosing what aligns with your true self and your deeper aspirations. It's about understanding that some desires are shallow and fleeting, while others are deep and lasting. When we are able to recognize the difference, we gain the freedom to live a life that truly satisfies us. Take the example of someone who desires peace of mind. Instead of chasing after external achievements or material gains, they might focus on developing inner peace through meditation, spending time with loved ones, or pursuing activities that bring them joy. Their freedom comes from their ability to prioritize what truly matters to them. They have made the choice to focus on things that nurture their well-being, and in doing so, they have found a deeper, more lasting sense of freedom. They are no longer trapped by the demands of society or the pressure to accumulate things. They have learned that freedom comes from knowing what is worth wanting and choosing that over everything else. In this sense, wisdom acts as the foundation of true freedom. It helps us recognize what is fleeting and what is lasting. It allows us to see beyond the surface and understand what will truly bring us fulfillment. Without wisdom, we may chase after shallow desires, thinking that they will bring us happiness, only to find ourselves empty once we achieve them. Wisdom, on the other hand, helps us focus on what is meaningful and sustainable. It gives us the clarity to choose our desires wisely so that our freedom is not chaotic but purposeful. Freedom, then, is not about having limitless options or the ability to do anything. It's about having the clarity to know what you truly want and the ability to pursue it with intention. It's about understanding that not all desires are worth chasing and that true freedom comes from knowing what truly matters. In this way, freedom and wisdom go hand in hand. They are not separate concepts, but two sides of the same coin. Without wisdom, freedom becomes a hollow pursuit, leading us in circles. With wisdom, freedom becomes a meaningful journey, where every step is taken with purpose and clarity. Every night, we lay down to sleep, closing our eyes and surrendering our awareness to the pull of unconsciousness. In that moment, we give ourselves over to the unknown, trusting that we will wake in the morning. Sleep takes us away from the conscious world, and for several hours, we exist in a state of complete surrender. We may not think about it, but sleep is, in a sense, a small death, a temporary dissolving of our awareness. It's a daily ritual, something we do without fear, yet it mirrors something much larger and more permanent: death itself. Death is often feared, viewed as the end of everything we know. It's the final curtain call, the last chapter in the book of life. We fear what comes after it, what it means, and whether it leads to oblivion or something else. But when we sleep, we essentially do something very similar to what death does. We lose our sense of self, our awareness, and our active connection to the world around us. Each night, we experience a brief, controlled version of death, knowing that we will return, waking up to the world we left behind. We trust the cycle, just as we must trust the unknown that comes with death. Consider the nature of sleep. When we fall asleep, we enter a state where our conscious mind fades into the background and we become oblivious to the world. For hours, we lose touch with everything: our thoughts, our feelings, the passage of time. In some ways, sleep is like a rehearsal for death, where we lose our awareness and then return to life when morning comes. We do not fear this nightly surrender. We embrace it. Each night, we allow ourselves to be consumed by sleep, accepting that we will not be conscious of what happens until we wake up again. In this way, sleep is a reminder of how closely death and life are intertwined. The only real difference between the two may be the certainty of waking. When we sleep, we trust that we will open our eyes again and return to the world we left behind. We don't know exactly how sleep works, just as we don't know exactly how death works. The process of falling asleep and waking up is something we do without question, and yet it is remarkably similar to the process of dying and perhaps being reborn. Many people fear death because of the uncertainty it carries. What happens when we die? Where do we go? What do we become? These questions are at the heart of the human fear of death. Yet every night, we let go of our consciousness without hesitation, trusting that we will return the next morning. We give ourselves over to the unknown, and we do so repeatedly, night after night. If we can trust sleep, why can we not trust death in a similar way? Perhaps death is not as different from sleep as we believe. Perhaps it's simply a more permanent form of the nightly rest we take, where we surrender to the unknown with the hope that we will awaken again, though in a different form. When we fall asleep, we cease to be actively aware of our surroundings. We give up control over our bodies and our thoughts. The world around us continues, but we are no longer participating in it. We trust that we will awaken when the time is right. It is in this very act of surrender that sleep teaches us something about death. It asks us to trust in the process, to surrender to the unknown, and to believe that, though we leave the world behind for a time, we will return to it once again. This act of trust is, in a way, the essence of what we need to face death, the ability to let go without the need for answers, to trust that something will follow, even if we don't understand it. Think of a child who has never experienced sleep. To them, the idea of closing their eyes and losing touch with the world would be terrifying. They would fear the unknown, not knowing if they would wake up again or what would happen in that state of unconsciousness. As we grow older, we lose that fear because we experience sleep night after night, waking each time with a sense of assurance. In a way, death is the same. It's the ultimate unknown, but it is something we must all face. Just as we learn to trust sleep, we may eventually learn to trust death, knowing that while we may not fully understand it, there is a certainty that something will follow, even if we can't fully comprehend it. When we sleep, we let go of the need to control our surroundings. We surrender to the darkness, the quiet, and the stillness. For a few hours, we are no longer active participants in the world. Instead, we exist in a place where we are completely passive, awaiting the return of our consciousness when we wake. The idea of death, much like sleep, involves letting go of control. We are no longer the active agents in our own lives. Our time has ended, and we leave the world behind. What happens next is beyond our control, just as sleep is. We trust in it because it is part of the natural cycle, a cycle we have learned to accept over time. There are moments when we wake up in the middle of the night, unsure of what time it is, momentarily disoriented. For a brief second, we might feel a flicker of fear or confusion, not knowing where we are or how long we've been asleep. This sensation, this feeling of disconnection from reality, can be likened to the moments just before death. But just as we return to consciousness when we wake up, perhaps death is simply a shift into a different kind of existence, one that we are not yet fully aware of. We may experience a brief moment of disorientation, but just as we reorient ourselves when we wake up, we may eventually find ourselves in a new state of being when we pass on. As we continue to live, sleep becomes less of a mystery, and we begin to understand it as a natural and necessary part of life. We recognize that sleep is a vital process, one that refreshes us and prepares us for the day ahead. It's not something to fear, it's something we need in order to function. In the same way, perhaps death, while unknown, is also part of the natural rhythm of existence. Like sleep, it is not something to fear, but something to accept as a necessary process, one that brings us into a different state of being. In sleep, we disconnect from the world for a time, trusting that we will reconnect when we wake. Similarly, death may be the ultimate disconnection, but it may not be an end. It may simply be a transition into another form of existence. Just as we trust that sleep will end with our return to wakefulness, perhaps we can trust that death will be followed by something we cannot yet fully understand. There is an old saying that you can never step in the same river twice. On the surface, it might seem like the river itself is constantly changing. The water flows, the current shifts, and new water enters the stream. But the deeper meaning is that it's not the river that's changed so much as the person who returns to it. When you come back to the river, you are no longer the same person you were the first time. You have grown, experienced new things, and seen the world differently. Time has shaped you, whether you realize it or not. Life is like that river. It flows, always moving forward, and with each passing day, it pulls us along with it. We don't always notice the changes as they happen. They are slow, gradual, and subtle. But over time, the changes accumulate, and we find that we are not the same people we once were. Our beliefs shift, our habits evolve, and our understanding of the world deepens. Even the smallest experiences, the unnoticed moments, shape us into who we are today. When we look back at a version of ourselves from years ago, we might be surprised at how different we were. We may laugh at the things that once seemed important, or cringe at the choices we made. But the person we were then is not someone we can go back to, because we are not the same anymore. The river we once stepped into is no longer the same, and neither are we. Every experience we have, every decision we make, contributes to who we become. It's easy to think that time moves in a straight line from one moment to the next, and that we are just passive travelers along the way. But time is more than a linear force. It is the sculptor of our character, the thing that molds and shapes us in ways we cannot always see. We change over time, not because we choose to, but because life itself has a way of nudging us along, forcing us to adapt, learn, and grow. Take a moment to think about the last few years of your life. How have you changed? What beliefs have you let go of? What new ideas have you adopted? We often fail to notice the ways in which we've transformed because the changes are so small and so gradual. But if we step back and reflect, we can see how much we've shifted. We might have learned new skills, built deeper relationships, or come to a better understanding of ourselves and the world around us. These are the silent shifts, the subtle currents of life that move us forward, often without our realizing it. In many ways, we are like the river. We start out with a clear sense of who we are, but over time, that clarity becomes less defined. We are shaped by the experiences we encounter, by the people we meet, and by the lessons we learn. Sometimes the changes are hard to see in the moment, especially when we are too close to the situation. But when we look back, we can see the way time has worked its magic. We see the small shifts, the quiet changes that have led us to where we are now. The greatest changes in life often happen within. It's easy to focus on the external, on the changes in our appearance, our career, or our relationships. But the most significant transformations are the ones that happen deep inside us. It's the shift in perspective, the opening of the mind, the letting go of old habits and beliefs that no longer serve us. These are the changes that really shape us because they affect how we interact with the world and how we see ourselves. Think about a time when you faced a difficult challenge. It might have been a personal loss, a failure, or a major decision that had to be made. In the moment, it felt like a heavy weight, something that would shape you forever. But after some time, you look back on that challenge and you realize that it didn't break you. It changed you. You learned something about yourself. You grew stronger, wiser, more capable. The pain, the hardship, the struggle, it all became a part of you, transforming you in ways you could never have predicted. You might have started out feeling helpless, but by the end, you were a different person, more resilient, more patient, more understanding. This process is a constant in life. No matter where we are, no matter what we're going through, we are always changing. Sometimes the changes are so small that we don't notice them until we look back. Other times, they are obvious and jarring, like when we go through a significant life event. But whether big or small, all these changes contribute to our growth as individuals. We are never the same person we were yesterday. Life moves us forward, shaping us with every passing moment. The river of change is always flowing, and we are carried along with it. We can't stop the flow, and we can't go back to the way things were. But we don't need to. We can trust that the current is moving us towards something better, something more suited to who we are becoming. Just as the river flows toward the ocean, we too are moving toward our own destination, shaped by the journey we are on. Every day, every experience, every moment is a step toward who we are meant to be. The river never stops moving, and neither do we. Life continues to flow, and with it, we continue to change. We can't control the current, but we can choose how we respond to it. We can resist it, fight against it, or we can let ourselves be carried along, trusting that wherever the river takes us, we will become who we are meant to be. The changes that happen within us may not always be easy or comfortable, but they are necessary. They are what shape us into the people we are, and they are what prepare us for the future. Life is fluid, and just as the river shapes the land it flows through, so too does time shape who we are. And in the end, that is what matters most, not where we've been, but who we've become. There are times when words are not enough, when we search for the right things to say, but feel that nothing can capture what we're truly feeling or thinking. In those moments, silence can become the most powerful form of communication. It can express things that words cannot, reaching places in us that language often fails to touch. The quiet between two people, the pause in a conversation, or the absence of sound in a room, these moments can speak louder than any words ever could. Consider a conversation between two people who have been through a difficult experience together. They might not say anything for a while, but the silence between them says it all. It can be a silence that speaks of shared understanding, of grief, or of comfort. Sometimes we don't need to explain our pain or our joy. The silence between us does it for us. It holds the weight of everything we don't say, the things that are too complex or raw to express. That silence, heavy with unspoken words, can carry a depth of emotion and connection that is beyond what we can articulate. There is also the silence of waiting. In a room filled with people, when someone is about to speak but hesitates, the silence that follows can speak volumes. It tells us of uncertainty, of fear, of something important that is about to be said but cannot yet be voiced. This type of silence holds the tension of an unspoken question, a moment on the edge of revelation. It's a silence that is pregnant with possibility, as if the space between words holds the key to understanding. We don't need to hear the answer right away, because the silence itself suggests that something significant is about to unfold. Sometimes silence is used as a form of control. In a tense situation, one person might choose to remain silent, not out of ignorance, but as a way of withholding information, power, or emotion. This silence can be a deliberate choice, meant to create distance, provoke thought, or manipulate the dynamics of a conversation. A person who refuses to speak can communicate their disapproval, their withdrawal, or their anger more effectively than any harsh words could. The power of silence in this context is in its ability to shut down communication, to leave the other person hanging, wondering what is left unsaid. It creates a void that is far more unsettling than anything that might be spoken aloud. There is also the silence that comes with comfort, the quiet that settles between two people who are at ease with each other. This silence isn't awkward or uncomfortable. It's the peaceful stillness that comes from knowing that there's no need to fill the air with words. The presence of the other person is enough. In these moments, silence becomes an expression of trust and contentment. You don't need to speak to know that the other person is there, sharing the same space, understanding your thoughts without needing to hear them. These moments are often the most intimate, where nothing needs to be said because everything that needs to be understood is already understood. Think of the moments in life when words fail to capture the depth of what we experience. A parent holding their child's hand for the first time, the stillness of a moment of grief, or the weight of an unspoken apology. These are moments where silence holds the truth that words cannot. The quiet that surrounds such moments often says more about the experience than any explanation could. It's in these pauses, these moments without words, that we often find the most profound understanding. Even when someone says nothing, their silence can be heard. Think of a person who is deeply hurt but refuses to speak of it. Their silence is not just the absence of sound, but a powerful statement of what they are going through. It shows their pain, their unwillingness to share, or their belief that words would never do justice to what they are feeling. In this way, silence becomes a form of expression in itself. It's not simply the absence of noise, but a meaningful choice, a statement of the limits of language. Sometimes silence reveals more than we think. It can be the space where truth resides, hidden from the surface, yet undeniable once noticed. It's the silence that hangs in the air after someone says something hurtful, the uncomfortable quiet that follows a sharp disagreement. In those moments, silence is not neutral. It is filled with meaning. It tells us what is left unspoken, what we dare not say. The weight of that silence can sometimes be more revealing than the words that came before it. Consider a situation where two people are deeply upset with one another. They might avoid eye contact, their words sharp and quick, their voices raised in anger. But then, after all the words have been spoken, there is a silence. This silence is not empty. It carries the tension of the argument, the weight of everything that was said and unsaid. It holds all the unspoken emotions that linger in the air. In that silence, each person can feel the distance between them, and it becomes clear what has been left unaddressed. Sometimes, silence can carry a greater emotional punch than anything said during the argument itself. In some ways, silence is the ultimate form of expression because it forces us to listen. When someone speaks, we can easily tune out, prepare our response, or interrupt with our own thoughts. But when silence takes over, we are compelled to be present. It forces us to sit with the discomfort, to feel the weight of what is not being said. In this way, silence can be the most honest communication we experience. It has the power to make us reflect, to make us think, to make us understand. Think of a time when you found yourself in an argument, and suddenly, the conversation stopped. The tension hung in the air, unspoken words filling the space between you. That moment, when nothing was said but everything was understood, was likely one of the most powerful moments in the exchange. In that silence, you both knew exactly what the other person was feeling, even if the words hadn't been said. Silence has a unique ability to communicate everything we cannot put into words. It brings a depth and complexity to our experiences that language can sometimes fail to express. There are also times when we choose silence as a form of reflection. After a difficult experience, we might retreat into silence, not because we don't know what to say, but because we need to process. In these moments, silence becomes a tool for understanding, for organizing our thoughts, and for healing. It's not empty or meaningless. It's a space where we make sense of what has happened, where we find clarity before we speak again. The truth is, silence is never just empty space. It's always filled with meaning, with emotion, and with depth. Whether it's a moment of shared understanding, a form of control, or a pause for reflection, silence speaks in ways that words often cannot. It has a power all its own, one that reaches into the depths of our experiences and expresses the truths that language sometimes struggles to capture. Memory is often thought of as a clear window into the past, an unblemished record of everything we've experienced. We believe that what we remember is true, but in reality, memory is more like a mirror, flawed and distorted. It doesn't simply reflect what happened, it reflects who we were when we looked at it. Each time we recall a moment from our past, we are not seeing it exactly as it was, but as we are now. Our present selves shape our memories, filling in gaps, altering details, and sometimes even rewriting entire events. Think about a childhood memory. Perhaps it's a trip you took with your family, or a time you felt particularly close to a friend. When you remember it, the image that comes to mind is not a perfect replay of what happened. It is shaped by who you are today. If you are older and have experienced more, you might see that memory through a different lens than when you first lived it. You might now understand things you didn't then, or you might view the people involved in a new light. In this way, your memory is no longer just a reflection of the past. It's a combination of what actually happened and who you are now. The process of remembering is never neutral. When we look back at our lives, we do so with the knowledge, experiences, and emotions we've accumulated over the years. We are different people from the ones who lived those moments. And so, when we revisit the past, we often rewrite it, consciously or not. We might amplify certain details that seem more significant now, or we might downplay things we no longer value. What was once a minor detail becomes important, and what once seemed crucial might fade into the background. For example, a relationship that once seemed complicated and full of tension may, with time, appear simpler in our memory. We might focus on the good moments, forgetting the bad. Or, on the other hand, we might remember only the negative parts, overlooking the happier times. In both cases, our present selves are influencing our recollections. What we choose to remember, what we emphasize or omit, reflects not just the past, but who we are now. This is why memories can feel both comforting and painful. They are not fixed, they shift and change as we change. A place that once felt full of happiness and possibility might with time feel cold and distant. The people who once meant the world to us may now seem like strangers, their faces blurred by the years. Or the opposite can happen. People we've lost touch with or places we've left behind might take on a new significance as we reflect on them through the lens of our current life. Memory, like a mirror, reflects not just the past, but the person looking into it. The way we remember is also affected by how we feel in the present. When we are happy, we might look back on past experiences with warmth, even if those experiences were difficult at the time. On the other hand, when we are sad or upset, we might remember the past more negatively, focusing on the struggles or disappointments. Our emotions color our memories, and these recollections, in turn, affect how we feel about our present selves. Sometimes we are aware of this process of rewriting our past, but often we are not. We believe that our memories are accurate, that they are a true reflection of what happened, when in fact, they have been shaped by time and our changing selves. This is why two people can have entirely different memories of the same event. One person might remember a family gathering as joyful and warm, while another might recall the same event as tense and uncomfortable. Both are remembering what happened, but each person is seeing it through their own lens, influenced by their current state of mind and their own experiences. Think about a disagreement you might have had with someone long ago. At the time, the argument probably felt important, even defining in the moment. But now, with the distance of time, the memory might seem less significant. Or perhaps it's the other person who looks less in the wrong than you once thought. We rewrite these past events as we grow, shaping them with new understanding, new perspectives, and often with new emotional responses. Our past is not a fixed timeline. It is a constantly evolving narrative, one that we tell ourselves again and again, adjusting it as needed. The act of remembering is not just about retrieving facts or details, it's about interpretation. We make sense of the past through the lens of the present. The meaning we assign to our memories is shaped by who we are today, not who we were when the events occurred. This is why we can look back at something we once thought was a mistake and later see it as a lesson or a turning point. Or conversely, why something we once cherished might later seem trivial or even harmful. Our present selves shape how we view the past, and in turn, how we move forward in life. This dynamic between memory and self-identity is powerful because it shows how much control we have over our own stories. While we cannot change what happened, we can change how we view it. We can find new meaning in our memories, reinterpret old events, and reshape our understanding of ourselves. This ability to reinterpret the past is part of what allows us to grow. It gives us the freedom to learn from our experiences without being trapped by them. Consider the process of healing from a difficult period in life. At the time, you might have seen everything as hopeless, as if there was no way forward. But with time, as you grow and gain new insights, you may begin to see that period differently. You may come to understand the reasons behind your struggles or see how they shaped you into the person you are today. What once seemed like a purely negative experience may now seem like a pivotal moment in your growth. This shift in how you view your past is a reflection of how far you've come. It's not that the past has changed, but that you have changed, and with that change comes a new way of looking at everything that came before. In this way, memory is not a passive record of events. It is an active, ongoing process of interpretation and reinterpretation. Each time we remember, we are not just recalling a past event, we are reshaping it to fit the person we are now. We rewrite our pasts every time we look back on them, adjusting the details, the meaning, and the significance. Our memories are not fixed, they evolve as we do. This is why the past can sometimes feel distant, even alien, because it is not static. It is alive, constantly being remade by the present. This process of memory and reinterpretation is both freeing and limiting. On one hand, it allows us to grow, to make peace with our past, and to find new meaning in old experiences. On the other hand, it means that we can never truly know the past as it was. We can only know it as we have come to understand it. Memory, like a mirror, reflects not just what was, but who we were when we looked into it. And with each new glance, we change the reflection just a little bit more. Loneliness is a strange experience. It's not simply the absence of people, but a deeper feeling, one that can remain even when others are around. It's a kind of emptiness, a void that doesn't fill when we are surrounded by others. We can be in a crowded room, surrounded by friends or family, and still feel isolated. The presence of others does not automatically mean we are connected to them. True companionship, the kind that fills the emptiness of loneliness, requires more than just being near someone. It demands a connection, a bond that goes beyond proximity, beyond mere physical presence. Think of a time when you were in a group of people, but still felt alone. Perhaps it was a party or a family gathering where everyone was talking, laughing, and having a good time. But despite the noise and the activity, you felt disconnected. You could see people engaging with each other, but you were on the outside, detached. This feeling is not uncommon. It shows that just because people are physically near us doesn't mean we are truly connected to them. True connection is more than just being in the same place at the same time. It's a shared understanding, an emotional link that goes beyond words or actions. This kind of connection requires attention. It asks for real presence, the kind of attention that acknowledges the other person fully. It's the difference between hearing someone and truly listening to them. When we are present with someone, we are not just sharing space, but sharing an experience. We are tuning in to their emotions, their thoughts, and their feelings. This creates a bond that goes beyond surface-level interaction. It's a deeper connection that makes us feel understood and seen. Without this presence, loneliness persists, even when people are around. Presence is often overlooked. In today's world, it's easy to be physically with others, but mentally elsewhere. We can sit across from someone, scrolling through our phones, while they speak to us. We may be in the same room, but we are not really there with them. The distractions of our modern lives, phones, work, social media, often pull us away from the people in front of us. As a result, we may feel the presence of others, but never feel their true connection. The more distracted we become, the more disconnected we feel, even as we are surrounded by people. True companionship requires focus and effort. It's not enough to just be near someone. We have to be truly engaged with them. This is what makes relationships meaningful. It's not about the quantity of time spent together, but the quality of the time. A brief moment of real connection, where both people are fully present and engaged, can have more impact than hours of being together without truly connecting. Consider a simple conversation between two people. One person might be talking about something important to them, but the other is distracted, looking at their phone, glancing around the room, or thinking about something else. In this case, even though they are physically close, they are not connected. The person speaking might sense this absence of attention, which can make them feel unnoticed or unimportant. On the other hand, when both people are fully present, when they are genuinely listening, engaging with each other's words, and showing empathy, that conversation becomes meaningful. The connection between them deepens, and any sense of loneliness or disconnection fades away. It's easy to underestimate the importance of presence. We often think that showing up is enough, but it's not. Simply being in the same place as someone doesn't guarantee connection. True presence requires active participation. It means putting aside distractions and focusing on the moment. When we do this, we show the other person that they matter. This is the foundation of companionship. It's not about what we do together, but how we are together. In the quiet moments of shared understanding, when words aren't necessary, that is when connection happens. Loneliness can occur when we feel like we are not seen or understood. We might be surrounded by people, but if no one is truly present with us, we can feel invisible. We may long for someone to listen to us, to hear what we are truly saying, not just with their ears, but with their hearts. This is the kind of connection that makes us feel alive, that makes us feel like we belong. Without it, we are left feeling adrift, as if no one truly knows us. And even though others are physically near, we are still alone. Being seen is essential to human connection. It's about more than just being noticed. It's about being understood, about someone acknowledging your existence in a way that makes you feel valued. True companionship doesn't just fill the space around us, it fills the space inside us. It makes us feel whole, it nourishes our soul, and it allows us to feel connected not just to others, but to ourselves as well. This need for connection is why loneliness can feel so painful. It's not just the absence of people, it's the absence of meaningful interaction, the lack of someone truly seeing us for who we are. We all need to be heard, to be understood, and to be accepted for who we are. Without this, we are left to navigate the world on our own, disconnected from others, and often from ourselves as well. In these moments of isolation, we can begin to question our worth, our value, and our place in the world. But the truth is, loneliness is not a permanent state. It can be alleviated by finding true companionship, by seeking out moments of real presence and connection. Loneliness is a strange experience. It's not simply the absence of people, but a deeper feeling, one that can remain even when others are around. It's a kind of emptiness, a void that doesn't fill when we are surrounded by others. We can be in a crowded room, surrounded by friends or family, and still feel isolated. The presence of others does not automatically mean we are connected to them. True companionship, the kind that fills the emptiness of loneliness, requires more than just being near someone. It demands a connection, a bond that goes beyond proximity, beyond mere physical presence. Think of a time when you were in a group of people, but still felt alone. Perhaps it was a party or a family gathering where everyone was talking, laughing, and having a good time. But despite the noise and the activity, you felt disconnected. You could see people engaging with each other, but you were on the outside, detached. This feeling is not uncommon. It shows that just because people are physically near us doesn't mean we are truly connected to them. True connection is more than just being in the same place. We often treat happiness as a goal, something to be attained after achieving certain milestones in life. We think that once we have the perfect job, the right relationship, or the dream home, happiness will be waiting for us at the finish line. But this view of happiness as a destination is misleading. It makes us believe that happiness is something we can grab hold of once we've earned it, as if it's a prize at the end of a race. In truth, happiness is not a fixed place to reach. It is the way we travel through life. It is not the end of the journey, it is the journey itself. Consider a person who has spent years working toward a career goal. They've imagined that once they achieve this goal, they will be happy. They finally land the position they've worked so hard for. And yet, after the initial excitement wears off, they find themselves feeling the same as they did before. The goal that was supposed to bring happiness didn't do so. What they realize too late is that the pursuit of happiness, if viewed solely as an end result, can never be truly fulfilled. The chase itself, the growth, the effort, the moments of satisfaction and struggle, was where happiness was found, not in the achievement itself. The idea that happiness is a destination blinds us to the reality that it is an ongoing process, a way of living. If we are always waiting for happiness to come once we've achieved something, we will spend most of our lives in anticipation, forever postponing the joy we think we will feel later. But what if we stopped thinking of happiness as something that arrives only after an achievement? What if we shifted our perspective and recognized that happiness is already here, in the very act of living, in the way we approach each moment? Think about how we feel when we are fully present, when we stop worrying about what's next and just enjoy what is in front of us. A good conversation, a meal shared with friends, a moment of quiet in nature. These are the small moments that make life rich with happiness. It's not that these moments are free of challenges or imperfection. In fact, they are often mixed with difficulties, yet there is joy in the experience of living them. Happiness arises when we embrace the present moment instead of chasing an ideal future that may never come. We tend to think of happiness in terms of big, external accomplishments, but real happiness is rooted in how we live and how we move through life every day. Imagine a person who has faced many challenges but still manages to find moments of joy in their daily routine. They might not have everything they want, but they focus on the small things that bring them fulfillment. They wake up in the morning with a sense of gratitude, enjoy their work, and appreciate the time spent with loved ones. They move through life with a sense of joy, not because everything is perfect, but because they've learned to find happiness in the process, in the act of living itself. What happens when we start to see happiness as part of our daily journey, rather than something to be reached? We stop postponing it. Instead of waiting for the big moment, we find joy in the small things. We start to appreciate the mundane moments of life, the routine, the daily interactions, and the small victories. The way we approach our day shapes our experience of happiness. If we see every moment as an opportunity for joy, we become more attuned to the good things happening around us. We learn to savor the present, finding satisfaction in the journey itself. The key to this kind of happiness is not external circumstances, but internal perspective. It's how we choose to approach life. A person can have everything they think they want and still feel empty, while someone else can have far less but experience deep fulfillment. Happiness doesn't depend on having the right things. It depends on how we engage with life and how we respond to the ups and downs. When we learn to find meaning and joy in the process of living, we stop tying our happiness to a future event that may or may not come. We stop thinking that happiness is something we earn and start recognizing that it's something we can choose every day, in every moment. We often hear that happiness is a choice, and while this may sound overly simplistic, it is true in the sense that we can choose to find joy in our everyday experiences. Even in times of hardship, there are moments we can appreciate. It's not about ignoring difficulties or pretending everything is fine. It's about finding moments of peace, connection, or satisfaction amid the challenges. Life is not just about the end result. It's about how we live in the process. We don't need to wait for the perfect moment to feel happiness. Every day holds opportunities to embrace joy, even if they come in small, quiet forms. Think of the way a child experiences the world. They don't wait for big events to make them happy. Their joy comes from the simple pleasures, playing with a toy, running outside, or having ice cream. Children don't chase happiness, they live in it. They experience joy in the present, not as something to be earned or achieved. They remind us that happiness isn't about achieving milestones, but about embracing life as it is, with all its imperfections and surprises. This mindset can be difficult to adopt, especially in a world that values achievement and success. We are taught to pursue happiness through goals. Get the promotion, buy the house, get the degree. And while these things can bring satisfaction, they don't guarantee happiness. If we keep postponing our happiness until after the next achievement, we often treat happiness as a goal, something to be attained after achieving certain milestones in life. We think that once we have the perfect job, the right relationship, or the dream home, happiness will be waiting for us at the finish line. But this view of happiness as a destination is misleading. It makes us believe that happiness is something we can grab hold of once we've earned it, as if it's a prize at the end of a race. In truth, happiness is not a fixed place to reach. It is the way we travel through life. It is not the end of the journey, it is the journey itself. Consider a person who has spent years working toward a career goal. They've imagined that once they achieve this goal, they will be happy. They finally land the position they've worked so hard for. Most people think they fear the unknown, the things they cannot predict or understand. But in truth, the real fear is often of losing the known, the things we are familiar with, the comfort of what we already have. We become attached to the familiar, even when it no longer serves us. We hold on to old habits, outdated ideas, and relationships that have run their course, all because we fear what might happen if we let go. The fear of losing what we know can trap us in a cycle, making us afraid to move forward, even when we know that change is necessary. Take, for example, a person stuck in a job they don't enjoy. They know it doesn't fulfill them, but the fear of leaving it behind keeps them in place. They stay because they know the routine, the work, the people, the pay. The uncertainty of finding something new, something unknown, feels too risky. Even though they're unhappy, the known pain is less frightening than the unknown possibility of change. This is the fear that keeps them stuck. Not the fear of the future, but the fear of what they will lose by letting go of the present. In their mind, it's safer to stay in a bad situation than to risk the discomfort of uncertainty. This fear of letting go goes beyond jobs. It can show up in all areas of life, in relationships, in habits, in beliefs. People often stay in relationships that drain them because they fear the emptiness that might follow the loss. They might be with someone who no longer respects them or doesn't fulfill their emotional needs. But the thought of being alone is too overwhelming. They hold on because it feels easier than facing the unknown of life without that person. But in reality, clinging to something that no longer serves us limits our potential for growth, both as individuals and as a society. The fear of losing the known can also keep us from pursuing our true desires. We get caught in patterns, routines, and expectations that we feel we cannot break. We might have dreams and aspirations, but the comfort of what we already know can feel safer than stepping into the unknown, even when the unknown offers the possibility of a better life. We hesitate to take risks because the thought of losing what we've worked for, what we've built, feels too great. But by holding on, we close ourselves off to the opportunities and experiences that could lead to something greater. It's easy to understand why we fear letting go. The unknown is, by definition, uncertain. It brings discomfort because it doesn't guarantee anything. When we hold on to what we know, we feel a sense of control. We know what to expect, even if that means staying in a place that isn't ideal. It feels familiar, and familiarity brings comfort, but this comfort comes at a cost. By staying where we are, we prevent ourselves from growing. We prevent ourselves from moving forward. We limit what we can become because we are too afraid of what we might lose. Think about the process of personal growth. It often requires letting go of old ways of thinking or behaving, even when they are deeply ingrained. It might mean leaving behind old beliefs that no longer serve us, letting go of self-limiting thoughts that hold us back, or stepping away from environments or people that discourage us. But letting go is hard. We fear that by releasing what we know, we will lose ourselves. We fear that change will strip us of our identity, leaving us exposed and vulnerable. However, it's in letting go of the old that we make space for the new. We cannot grow without change. We cannot evolve without embracing the unknown. Consider someone who has spent years in a toxic environment, whether it's a workplace or a group of friends. They know it's harmful, but they remain because they're afraid of what will happen if they leave. They fear the unknown. How? How will they find another job, make new friends, or feel fulfilled again? But by holding on, they continue to limit themselves. They hold on to something that brings them pain, and in doing so, they prevent themselves from experiencing the freedom and opportunity that could come from letting go. It's only when they release their attachment to what they know that they can step into a life that offers more joy, growth, and possibility. The fear of letting go isn't always tied to things that are overtly negative either. Sometimes we fear losing the known, even when what we have is good, but not great. A person might stay in a relationship that feels comfortable but lacks passion. They might stay in a job that offers stability but doesn't bring excitement. The fear of losing something decent, something that provides a sense of security, can be enough to prevent them from reaching for something better. They fear the unknown, the risk of reaching for more. Because what they have, while not perfect, is familiar, it's known. But what happens when we release our hold on what's familiar and step into the unknown? Often, it's only then that we realize how much we were limiting ourselves. The unknown is not as terrifying as we once thought. In fact, it can bring new experiences, new opportunities, and new growth. When we let go of what holds us back, we open ourselves up to a world of possibility. It's in those moments of uncertainty, those times when we let go, that we find the courage to discover new parts of ourselves and new opportunities that we never could have imagined while clinging to the past. Imagine someone who is hesitant to move to a new city for a fresh start. They know their current environment, their friends, and their job, but they also know that they are not truly happy. The fear of losing the known, of leaving behind the familiar, holds them back. But what they don't realize is that by letting go of what they know, they are giving themselves the chance to build a life that's more fulfilling. They are choosing to embrace uncertainty, knowing that it's through that uncertainty that they can create a future that is truly their own. This is true not only for personal decisions, but for societal progress as well. Change is often met with resistance because people fear the loss of the known. It's easier to stay with the status quo, even if the status quo is flawed, than to risk the unknown path of change. But history has shown us time and again that progress requires letting go. It requires stepping into the unknown, even when it's uncomfortable. The most transformative moments in society, in culture, and in individual lives have come from those who dared to let go of the old ways in order to make room for something better. The key to overcoming the fear of letting go is realizing that the unknown is not as dangerous as it seems. It's not about abandoning everything that's familiar. It's about having the courage to let go of what no longer serves us in order to make room for what's next. It's about trusting that by releasing the old, we create the space for new possibilities. We must recognize that the real danger lies not in the unknown, but in clinging to the known, because when we do, we limit our potential to experience all that life has to offer. Love is often portrayed as something perfect, something that happens when we find the right person, someone who fits all of our expectations. We are led to believe that love should feel effortless, that it should be filled with perfect moments and flawless connection. But real love is not about perfection. It's about accepting and embracing imperfections, both in ourselves and in others. It's about seeing the flaws and challenges that make someone who they are and finding grace in those moments. Consider the early stages of a relationship when everything seems new and exciting. You might look at the other person and see only the good, how they make you laugh, how they listen to you, how they share your interests. But as time passes, the excitement begins to fade, and the true nature of the person emerges. You start to see the quirks, the flaws, the habits that annoy you. This is where many relationships stumble. People begin to expect the other person to stay as they first appeared, perfect and unchanging. When they start to notice imperfections, they may start to question the relationship or feel disappointed. But real love doesn't come from meeting a set of expectations. It comes from accepting those imperfections with grace. Think about a time when someone close to you did something that frustrated or disappointed you. Maybe it was a small mistake or something they did without thinking. The immediate reaction might have been frustration or anger. But if you love them, you likely found a way to forgive. Love isn't about never being disappointed or never facing challenges. It's about how you respond when those moments happen. Love is found in the choice to understand, to forgive, and to accept the person as they are, imperfections and all. It's about seeing beyond the surface and embracing the deeper parts of who they are, even when those parts aren't perfect. Real love begins where expectations end. When we first meet someone, we often have an image in our minds of who they are or who we want them to be. We might expect them to always be kind, always be thoughtful, or always be on time. But no one can meet those expectations all the time. Life is messy, and people make mistakes. The real test of love comes when those expectations are not met. When a partner forgets an important date, or when they act in a way that hurts us, how do we respond? Do we hold on to our expectations, demanding perfection, or do we let go of those expectations and show grace? Grace in love is the ability to forgive. It's the ability to understand that people are not perfect and they will mess up. It's about accepting that mistakes are part of the human experience and allowing room for growth and change. Imagine a situation where someone you care about says something hurtful in the heat of the moment. In that instant, it's easy to react in anger, to demand an apology, or to hold on to the hurt. But love, when it's real, doesn't demand perfection. It recognizes the imperfection in all of us and responds with grace. It says, "I understand that you are human, and I am willing to work through this with you." This is where true connection is found, not in moments of perfection, but in moments of growth, vulnerability, and forgiveness. This grace is not only for others, but also for ourselves. We often hold ourselves to high standards, expecting perfection in our own actions and reactions. When we fail, we are quick to judge ourselves, to feel inadequate or unworthy of love. But grace in love means extending that same understanding to ourselves. It's about recognizing that we too are imperfect and we don't need to be perfect to be loved. We can make mistakes, we can falter, and we can still be worthy of love and connection. By accepting our own flaws, we become better equipped to accept the flaws in others. The love we give and receive is richer when it's rooted in grace, in the understanding that we are all imperfect beings trying to find our way. Think of a long-term relationship where both partners have grown and changed over the years. In the beginning, they may have been drawn to each other for specific reasons, shared interests, similar values, a strong physical connection. But over time, those surface-level traits might fade or change. One person may face challenges at work, or another may go through personal growth that changes how they see the world. In these moments, love doesn't come from clinging to the original expectations or the person they once were. It comes from adjusting to the new realities, embracing the changes, and continuing to choose each other, flaws and all. This kind of love isn't based on perfection. It's based on a deep, abiding connection that values the person in front of you, not the idealized version you might have first imagined. Love, when it's rooted in grace, also helps us to better communicate and connect. When we let go of the expectation that someone should be perfect, we stop trying to control the relationship or the other person. Instead, we open the door to honest, open communication. We stop assuming that love is about pleasing each other all the time or meeting each other's ideal. Instead, love becomes about understanding, about giving each other the space to be themselves, even when that means making mistakes or not always meeting expectations. This openness creates a foundation where both people feel safe enough to be vulnerable, to show their true selves without fear of judgment or rejection. When expectations give way to grace, love becomes a more genuine, grounded experience. It's not about striving for an impossible standard, but about accepting each other as we are. Love allows us to be human with one another, to grow and learn together, and to face the ups and downs of life with the understanding. Love is often portrayed as something perfect, something that happens when we find the right person, someone who fits all of our expectations. We are led to believe that love should feel effortless, that it should be filled with perfect moments and flawless connection. But real love is not about perfection. It's about accepting and embracing imperfections, both in ourselves and in others. It's about seeing the flaws and challenges that make someone who they are and finding grace in those moments. Consider the early stages of a relationship when everything seems new and exciting. You might look at the other person and see only the good, how they make you laugh, how they listen to you, how they share your interests. But as time passes, the excitement begins to fade, and the true nature of the person emerges. You start to see the quirks, the flaws. When we go through difficult experiences, loss, failure, betrayal, or injury, we often hope that time will make everything better. We think that with enough time, the pain will fade and we'll be able to move on completely. But the truth is, time doesn't always heal all wounds. Instead, it teaches us how to live with the scars. These scars are reminders of what we've been through, and while they may never completely disappear, they can become part of who we are. Healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about learning how to carry it with us, shaping it into something that helps us grow rather than holding us back. Imagine someone who has suffered a deep personal loss, such as the death of a loved one. In the early days, the pain might feel unbearable, as if the world has been shattered. At that moment, it's easy to believe that the only way to feel whole again is for the pain to completely disappear. But over time, that person begins to adjust. The rawness of the grief dulls, not because it's gone, but because they've learned to live with it. They find ways to remember their loved one, to honor their memory, while also continuing with their own life. The pain never fully disappears, but it changes. It becomes something that is no longer overwhelming. The wound heals, but the scar remains, a mark of the love and loss they experienced. This idea of living with scars is true for all forms of healing. Think of someone recovering from an injury. The body heals, but the scar remains as a reminder of what happened. It might fade with time, but it doesn't vanish completely. In the same way, emotional scars work. A difficult experience leaves a mark, and while we can adapt to it, the scar remains. We learn to live with it, but it doesn't erase the past. We might not feel the same intensity of pain that we once did, but the scar is still there, reminding us of what we've been through. In our lives, we often wish for a quick fix for our pain. We want to move on from difficult situations and forget the hurt. But healing doesn't work like that. Time doesn't erase the past. It gives us the space to adjust, to find new ways to live with our experiences. Healing is not about forgetting. It's about finding a way to keep going despite the pain. When we go through something painful, we can either let it define us negatively, or we can use it to shape who we are in a positive way. The choice isn't always easy, but it's in the way we adapt to the pain that we begin to heal. Think of a person who has been through a difficult breakup. In the beginning, it's all-consuming. The person may feel like they'll never be happy again, like the hurt will never go away. But over time, the pain doesn't disappear. Instead, it becomes something they learn to live with. They might still feel sadness when they think about the relationship, but they also learn to grow from the experience. The scar of that breakup becomes a part of their story. It teaches them more about what they want in future relationships, what they can improve in themselves, and how they can cope with similar situations. In the end, the scar isn't a mark of failure. It's a symbol of growth, of moving forward despite the hurt. There's a certain strength that comes from living with scars. It's not the strength of ignoring pain, but the strength of acknowledging it and continuing on. When we carry our scars with us, we show that we are resilient. We might not be the same as we were before the pain, but we've learned how to adjust and thrive despite it. Scars remind us of our capacity for endurance. They show us that we are capable of surviving even the toughest times, and that we have the ability to move forward, even when the past continues to leave its mark. Sometimes, people try to hide their scars, either because they feel ashamed or because they don't want others to see their pain. But the scars we carry are a part of us, and trying to hide them can prevent us from embracing our full selves. When we acknowledge our scars, we open the door to healing. We allow ourselves to be honest about what we've been through, and how it has shaped us. The scars don't define us, but they are a part of our story. They tell us that we have lived, that we have faced challenges, and that we have found a way to keep moving forward. Living with scars also teaches us to be compassionate, not just with ourselves, but with others. Everyone has their own wounds, whether they are visible or hidden. When we accept our own scars, we become more understanding of others' struggles. We learn that no one is exempt from pain, and that each person's journey is unique. The scars that others carry might be different from ours, but they are still a reminder that everyone has their own battles. When we recognize this, we become more empathetic, more willing to support others through their own healing process. Ultimately, healing is about adaptation. It's about learning to live with the scars, not by trying to erase them, but by finding ways to embrace them. The wounds we experience may never completely fade, but with time, we learn how to carry them in a way that doesn't hold us back. We learn to honor what we've been through, to understand how it has shaped us, and to continue moving forward with strength and grace. The scars we carry are a part of who we are, and they can be symbols of resilience, growth, and survival. We may not be able to choose what happens to us, but we can choose how we respond. We can choose to let our scars define us negatively, or we can choose to let them be a reminder of our strength. Healing is not about erasing the past. It's about learning how to live with it, finding meaning in it, and growing stronger because of it. It's through our scars that we learn the most about who we are and what we are capable of. The universe is vast, mysterious, and often feels beyond our understanding. For centuries, humanity has sought answers to the big questions. Why are we here? What is the purpose of life? What is the meaning behind the stars, the planets, and everything in between? These questions have been passed down through generations, shaping our philosophies, religions, and sciences. Yet, despite all our progress, we are still left with the sense that the universe is speaking to us in a language we have not yet fully decoded. What if the universe is not meaningless, but simply communicates in a way we don't yet understand? What if meaning surrounds us, hidden in plain sight, waiting for us to discover it? Perhaps the issue is not that the universe is indifferent to us, but that we lack the tools to perceive its deeper messages. Just as an infant doesn't understand the complexity of language, we might not yet be equipped to grasp the full significance of the cosmos. The idea that we are simply unable to hear or see the code of the universe doesn't make it meaningless. It suggests that we need to develop a new kind of awareness. Think about language for a moment. When we learn a new language, we don't immediately understand the words or phrases. At first, everything sounds like noise. It's only after we spend time learning, studying, and practicing that we begin to make sense of it. Gradually, the words start to connect with meaning. We begin to hear the subtle rhythms and structures that make up the language. It's a slow process, but once we understand it, the world feels different. The same can be true for how we approach the universe. The world around us is filled with patterns, signs, and forces, but we might not have yet developed the ability to decode them. Our current understanding of reality, shaped by science and experience, is like the rudimentary knowledge of a child just beginning to learn a new language. What if, with time and new insights, we could begin to hear and see the deeper truths that have always been there? Consider the way we experience the natural world. For centuries, people looked at the stars and wondered about their significance. Ancient civilizations, from the Greeks to the Egyptians, saw the sky as filled with gods, symbols, and mysteries. They created stories and mythologies to make sense of what they saw. Over time, science began to reveal that those stars were not gods or omens, but massive balls of gas, burning light years away. Yet even today, as we learn more about the stars, we still marvel at their beauty. We still gaze up at the night sky, filled with wonder. Perhaps the meaning we find in the stars isn't something that can be measured or explained in purely scientific terms, but something that resonates with our very human experience. The stars continue to speak to us, but in a different way than we imagined. If we could somehow tune into the deeper layers of reality, perhaps we would find that the universe is trying to communicate with us in ways that go beyond simple observations of matter. We already know that the natural world operates in predictable patterns. Gravity pulls, light travels in waves, atoms bond together to form molecules. But even with all this knowledge, there is still something mysterious about the way the universe functions. How did it all come to be? Why is there something instead of nothing? What gives life meaning? These are questions that remain elusive, despite centuries of human inquiry. Perhaps the key to understanding the universe is to stop looking for answers in the usual places. We often seek meaning in grand theories, complex formulas, and abstract concepts. But what if the true code of the cosmos is more subtle, woven into the very fabric of existence itself? We might find meaning in the way a flower blooms, the way the seasons change, or the way a river carves through the land. These simple things, often overlooked, might hold the deepest truths. In many ways, the universe is like a symphony, with every note, every movement, contributing to a larger, harmonious whole. The challenge is not just to understand the notes, but to learn how to hear the music. Think about the way we perceive time. For most of human history, time was measured in cycles: the rise and fall of the sun, the changing of seasons, the cycle of birth and death. It wasn't until the development of more sophisticated tools that we began to break time down into precise measurements: seconds, minutes, hours. Now, time seems to be something we control, something we quantify. But could it be that time, like everything else in the universe, is part of a much larger, more mysterious pattern? What if the flow of time is not as linear as we think, but part of a larger rhythm, one that we are not yet able to fully perceive? The idea that time might operate in ways we can't fully grasp doesn't make it meaningless. It suggests that there is more to reality than meets the eye, and that our understanding of time, like our understanding of language, is still developing. Another example is our understanding of consciousness. For years, philosophers and scientists have tried to answer the question, what is consciousness? Where does it come from? Why do we experience the world subjectively? Despite all our advances in neuroscience, the nature of consciousness remains one of the most profound mysteries. What if consciousness, like the universe itself, is part of a language we have not yet learned to understand? What if, instead of trying to reduce consciousness to the workings of the brain, we should be asking how it fits into the broader framework of existence? Perhaps, just as we don't yet understand all the nuances of the cosmos, we don't yet fully understand the depths of our own consciousness. One of the most compelling aspects of this idea is that it places us in a position of potential discovery. If the universe is speaking to us, but we are not yet fluent in its language, that means there is something to learn. It means that meaning is not locked away in some distant, unreachable place, but all around us, waiting to be recognized. All we need is a shift in perspective, a willingness to learn. Just as a musician learns to read music, or a scientist learns to interpret data, we can learn to recognize the patterns and codes that exist within the universe. We might not have all the answers yet, but by remaining open to the possibility that there is meaning in the universe, we begin to develop the tools we need to understand it. Consider the way different cultures have developed their own systems of meaning: myths, stories, religions, and philosophies, each one an attempt to decode the mysteries of existence. These systems of thought, while diverse, share a common thread: the belief that there is meaning to be found, even if it's not immediately clear. Perhaps the difference between ancient myths and modern science is not that one is more real than the other, but that they are two different ways of trying to understand the same underlying truth. What if both are pieces of the puzzle, each offering a different perspective on the larger cosmic story? In the end, the idea that the universe speaks to us in a language we haven't yet fully understood invites us to be patient, open, and curious. It suggests that meaning is not something we need to find in a distant future or in complex theories. It is something we are already a part of, something woven into the fabric of existence. The language of the cosmos is there, waiting for us to listen, to tune our senses, to look more closely, and to hear what has always been quietly speaking to us. Growth is often perceived as a smooth, positive experience. We think of it as a journey of progress, a step forward into something better. But the reality is that growth doesn't always feel like progress. Sometimes it feels like destruction, like breaking apart. It's as if you're outgrowing a shell that once protected you, only to realize that to move forward, you must leave that old shell behind. The shell may have kept you safe, but it also kept you small. To grow, you must shed it, sometimes painfully. Imagine a child who has outgrown their clothes. The clothes that once fit them perfectly now feel tight and uncomfortable. They might resist changing into something new because they are so familiar with what they have. But the truth is, they can't move forward without letting go of those clothes. Similarly, when we grow, we often outgrow the things that once worked for us, our habits, our thoughts, or even our relationships. The things that used to protect us may now limit us. And when we realize this, it can feel like we're being torn apart. Take the example of someone going through a major life change, like a career shift. They might have spent years building a particular identity in their job, believing that this role defined them. But as they grow and discover new passions or interests, they start to feel that this old role no longer fits. The job might have once given them a sense of purpose, but now it feels like a shell they've outgrown. The idea of leaving this familiar role behind can feel painful. It's as if they are losing part of themselves. But to move forward, to grow, they must leave behind what once felt comfortable. This process is uncomfortable, and often it feels like a kind of destruction. The old identity they've built is breaking apart, but this breaking is necessary for the next phase of their life. This idea of growth being disguised as destruction can also be seen in nature. Think of the process of a caterpillar transforming into a butterfly. The caterpillar's body has to break down completely in order to rebuild itself into something new. This transformation is not a simple process. It involves destruction, a breaking down of what was in order to create what will be. The caterpillar doesn't simply sprout wings overnight. It must first dissolve its old form entirely before it can emerge as something entirely different. In this process, there is pain, discomfort, and uncertainty. But this destruction is not an end, it is a beginning. It's the pain of growth. For people, the pain of growth often manifests as doubt. When we outgrow a particular phase of life or a part of ourselves, it can be difficult to know who we are without it. We might feel lost or unsure, as if we are drifting without a clear direction. This is especially true when the change we're going through feels like a complete departure from what we've known. We might feel like we've lost something important, like we are breaking apart at the seams. But this feeling is not a sign that we're failing or that something is wrong. It is simply a sign that we are growing. Think about someone who is going through the end of a relationship. This person may have spent years in the relationship, and it became a part of their identity. When the relationship ends, it feels like a piece of them has been ripped away. They might question who they are without this person. They might even feel as though they are breaking into pieces. But the pain they are feeling is part of the growth process. It is part of letting go of something that once fit but no longer does. The pain of this loss is not the end. It is the beginning of rediscovering themselves, of finding a new path forward, and eventually growing into a new version of themselves. Growth can also feel like a loss of control. When we start to change, we can no longer rely on the things that once gave us stability. Old coping mechanisms, old patterns of behavior no longer serve us the way they once did. At first, this can feel terrifying. We might question whether we are making the right choices or whether we are losing our way. The familiar structure of our life has been shaken, and it can feel like everything is falling apart. But in truth, this is the very nature of growth. It is a breaking down of what was in order to make room for something new. Just as a tree loses its leaves in the fall to make room for new growth in the spring, we too must let go of old parts of ourselves to grow into what we are becoming. This process of growth, disguised as destruction, doesn't always have to be dramatic or life-changing. It can show up in small, everyday ways. Think of someone learning a new skill. At first, they might be clumsy or unsure, constantly making mistakes. This discomfort can feel frustrating. It can feel like they are breaking their old habits, breaking their old way of thinking. But in order to master a new skill, they must let go of their old ways of doing things. It might feel like failure in the moment, but it's actually part of the process of growth. Every mistake is a step toward improvement. Every failure is a lesson. The breaking is not the end. It's part of the necessary destruction that happens on the way to transformation. The same can be true when we work through our internal struggles. It's common to have beliefs or patterns of thinking that limit us, thoughts that keep us small or stuck. These limiting beliefs may feel like a shield, protecting us from disappointment or pain. But as we grow, these old beliefs begin to feel restrictive. We might start to question them, challenge them, and eventually let them go. The process of shedding these beliefs feels like breaking down the walls we've built around ourselves. It can feel painful, and we might fear that without these walls, we will be vulnerable. But in reality, we are not losing our protection. We are creating space for new, healthier ways of thinking, for new beliefs that support our growth. Growth requires courage. It requires the courage to face the pain of breaking down and the unknown of what comes next. It's easy to stay in a place of comfort, even if that comfort no longer serves us. It's easy to cling to the old shell because it feels safe. But in order to truly grow, we must embrace the pain of outgrowing what we have. We must let go of the things that once protected us and trust that what comes next will be something better, something that fits us more fully. At times, this process can feel like a loss, like we are destroying parts of ourselves. But in truth, it's not destruction at all. It's transformation. The pain we feel is a sign of change, of becoming more of who we are meant to be. The old shell may have kept us safe, but it also kept us small. It is only by breaking it, by allowing ourselves to change, that we can become something more. The pain of growth is not the end of who we are, it's the beginning of who we are becoming. Every person's life is a story, a narrative shaped by the choices they make along the way. The idea of fate plays a part in that story, but it is the decisions we make that give it meaning and direction. We often like to think of life as something that just happens to us, as if we are simply players in a larger game. But in truth, we are the authors of our own stories. The paths we walk, the relationships we form, and the ways we respond to challenges are all written by the choices we make every day. We are not just shaped by what happens to us, we are shaped by how we decide to act in response to those events. Take, for example, a person who faces a difficult situation. Perhaps they lose a job or face a personal setback. It's easy to see this as something that has simply happened to them, an unfortunate turn of events. But how they react to that challenge determines the next chapter of their life. Some people might give up, feeling that they have been wronged by fate. Others might use the situation as an opportunity to grow, learn, and make a fresh start. The choice is theirs, and that choice will define the story that unfolds next. The job loss itself is just part of the setting, but how the person responds will shape their character and ultimately guide them to where they go next. This idea of character being shaped by will is something we see every day. People often find themselves in difficult situations that they did not ask for or foresee. These moments are like the plot twists in a book, unexpected and sometimes unwelcome. But it is in how we respond to these twists that our true character is revealed. A person's character is not defined by the circumstances they are born into or the challenges they face. It is defined by how they choose to meet those challenges, how they decide to move forward when the path is not clear. Imagine a young person raised in a difficult environment, perhaps in poverty or surrounded by adversity. It would be easy to assume that their future is determined by these circumstances, that they are bound by the setting they were born into. But many individuals in similar situations have gone on to lead extraordinary lives. Their success is not defined by fate, but by the choices they make. They decide to work hard, to push beyond what is expected of them, to use their challenges as stepping stones rather than roadblocks. In doing so, they become the authors of their own story, rewriting their fate with every choice. The power to shape our own character comes from recognizing that we are not powerless in the face of life's difficulties. It's easy to feel as though we are at the mercy of circumstances, especially when things are tough. But the reality is that we always have a choice. Even in the darkest moments, we have the power to choose how we respond, and that choice can change the course of our lives. Sometimes it might be a small decision, a decision to keep going when everything feels overwhelming. Other times, it might be a big choice, like deciding to leave a job or relationship that no longer serves us. But no matter the size of the decision, each one adds a page to the story of who we are becoming. One of the most powerful examples of this can be found in the way people overcome hardship. Life does not always go as planned. Things fall apart, people disappoint us, and obstacles seem to stand in our way. But what separates those who thrive from those who struggle is their response. The person who chooses to persevere, to learn from their mistakes, and to keep moving forward is writing a story of resilience. The person who chooses to let hardship define them, to give up in the face of adversity, is writing a different story, one where they remain stuck in the same chapter. In both cases, fate might have dealt a difficult hand, but it is the character that is built through action that determines the outcome. Consider someone who has been through a painful breakup. In the immediate aftermath, the pain is overwhelming. It's easy to feel like life is falling apart, that the loss will define everything that comes after. But some people, in those moments of heartbreak, decide to find meaning. They decide to heal, to focus on their own growth, and to use the pain as an opportunity to become stronger. Over time, they look back and realize that what they once saw as a tragic event has shaped them into a better, more capable person. They wrote a new chapter for themselves, one where they learned and grew from the experience. Others might let the same heartbreak consume them, allowing it to shape their future choices and their view of relationships. In this case, the story written is one of stagnation, where the character is defined by the past rather than the future they are capable of creating. The key to writing our own story lies in how we choose to view the challenges we face. Life will always present obstacles, but it is how we react to them that shapes our destiny. We might not have control over everything that happens to us, but we do have control over how we move forward. We can let the events of our lives define us in a way that holds us back, or we can use those events to become the people we are meant to be. The author within each of us is not one who writes only when things are easy. They are the ones who write even in the hardest of times, finding meaning and purpose in the struggle. It is important to remember that the story we are writing is not just about success or failure. It's about the journey itself, the decisions we make, the lessons we learn, and the way we treat others along the way. Every choice we make adds to the fabric of who we are. Every conversation, every action, every moment of kindness or selfishness adds a sentence to the story we are telling. And while we might not always see the results of our choices immediately, they are shaping the person we will become. The person who we are today is the result of the choices we made yesterday, and the person we will be tomorrow will be shaped by the choices we make today. When we embrace the idea that we are the authors of our own story, we gain a sense of empowerment. We stop seeing ourselves as passive observers of our own lives and start taking responsibility for the direction we are heading. The beauty of being the author is that we have the power to rewrite our narrative at any time. If we don't like the direction our story is going, we can choose to make a different choice, to take a different path. It may not be easy, and it may require sacrifice, but it is always within our power to change the story. We are not defined by the circumstances of our lives, but by how we choose to respond to them. Fate may shape the setting, but our character is shaped by our will, by the decisions we make and the actions we take. Life is not about waiting for something to happen. It's about creating the life we want through the choices we make every day. We are all stories in the making, and the power to write our own is in our hands. The way we perceive the world is shaped by the language we use. Our thoughts are limited by the vocabulary we have to express them. If our vocabulary is narrow, our view of reality becomes narrow as well. We can only think about and understand things for which we have words. In essence, the richness of our thoughts is determined by the words we know and use. Expanding our language can, therefore, expand our perception of the world. The words we use are not just tools for communication, they are the building blocks of our thoughts. Take, for example, a person who speaks only one language. They experience the world through the lens of that language. They may express complex emotions or ideas, but the way they frame those emotions is constrained by the words in their language. For instance, in some languages, there are multiple words for different kinds of love, while in others, there may be just one. A person who knows multiple words for love may have a more nuanced understanding of the different ways people experience affection. This deeper understanding allows them to connect more fully with their own emotions and with others. The same concept applies to how we perceive the world around us. If we only know a limited number of words to describe the colors we see, for example, we might not fully appreciate the diversity of shades around us. We might only see a few broad categories, blue, red, green, without recognizing the vast range of hues in between. But if we learn more words, if we expand our vocabulary to include colors like cyan, turquoise, or magenta, we begin to see the world in greater detail. The vocabulary we use shapes how we experience reality. The more words we have, the more we can see, feel, and understand. This idea extends beyond color or simple concepts. It reaches into how we understand abstract ideas like emotions, experiences, and even the way we think about the world. A person who has learned a wide range of emotional vocabulary might be better at identifying and expressing their feelings. Instead of simply saying they are sad, they might describe feeling heartbroken, disappointed, or melancholy, each word capturing a slightly different aspect of their emotional experience. By using more specific words, they can connect more deeply with what they are feeling and communicate those feelings more clearly to others. This not only improves their emotional intelligence, but also allows them to experience emotions in a richer, more meaningful way. Think about a situation where two people are discussing a recent event. One person may describe the event in simple terms, using only basic language. The other person might use a more expansive vocabulary, carefully selecting words that express not just what happened, but the emotions, the atmosphere, and the nuances of the situation. The second person's account will likely convey a more detailed and layered understanding of the event. The first person, limited by their vocabulary, might miss out on the subtleties. The words they choose determine how they experience and communicate what happened. In a more philosophical sense, the vocabulary of our thoughts defines the boundaries of our consciousness. If our language is limited, so is our ability to think deeply or critically about the world. Consider a society where the language is restricted or simplified, where there are fewer words for complex ideas like freedom, justice, or equality. In such a society, people may still understand the concepts, but their ability to express or analyze these ideas is restricted. The lack of vocabulary hinders their ability to think critically about their own circumstances, making it harder to challenge the status quo or envision alternatives. Language isn't just a tool for describing reality, it is a tool for shaping it. By expanding our vocabulary, we expand our ability to think, question, and understand. Take the example of the word freedom. In some cultures, the word may carry a specific meaning tied to independence or individual rights. But if that word is used narrowly or is understood only in the context of a particular political system, the depth of its meaning can be limited. However, if we expand our vocabulary to include related terms, liberation, autonomy, self-determination, we open ourselves up to a broader understanding of freedom, one that may encompass not just political or societal freedoms, but personal, spiritual, and psychological ones as well. The more we understand and are able to articulate different aspects of freedom, the richer our perception of the concept becomes. The same is true for how we understand the world around us. When we are limited by our vocabulary, we may struggle to fully express or understand complex phenomena like love, conflict, or happiness. We may have a general sense of these ideas, but we are unable to dig deeper or consider the multiple facets they contain. Expanding our vocabulary allows us to explore new dimensions of these experiences. It helps us recognize the nuances we might otherwise overlook. In a more practical sense, the limitations of our vocabulary can impact how we solve problems. When we face a challenge, our ability to find solutions often depends on how we define the problem. The words we use to describe a problem shape our understanding of it and influence how we approach it. A narrow vocabulary can limit our ability to think creatively. For example, if we only have a few words to describe a difficult situation at work, we might struggle to understand all its dimensions. But if we broaden our vocabulary to include terms like conflict, miscommunication, lack of resources, or organizational structure, we gain a more complete picture of the issue and can begin to approach it from multiple angles. The words we use shape our thinking, and our thinking shapes our actions. On a more personal level, our inner dialogue also affects the way we perceive reality. The words we use to talk to ourselves influence how we view our abilities, our worth, and our potential. If our self-talk is limited or negative, it can restrict our view of what is possible. We might tell ourselves that we are bad at something or that we can't do something. But if we expand our vocabulary of self-talk to include more supportive and empowering phrases, like, I am capable, I can improve, or I am learning, we begin to open up new possibilities for growth. The language we use with ourselves directly impacts our confidence and motivation. Expanding our vocabulary does more than just enrich our language. It enriches our perception of the world. When we have a broader range of words to describe our emotions, our experiences, and the world around us, we begin to see it in greater detail. We can understand the complexities of situations, the subtleties of relationships, and the depths of our own feelings. This expanded awareness allows us to make better decisions, communicate more effectively, and live more fully. It's also important to note that expanding our vocabulary isn't just about adding more words, it's about understanding the deeper meanings behind them. Language is a tool for thinking, and the more we learn about the nuances of the words we use, the more we enrich our thought processes. By becoming more attuned to the language we use and the language we encounter, we open ourselves up to a richer, more vibrant experience of life. In the end, the vocabulary of our thoughts limits or expands our view of the world. By expanding our language, we expand our capacity to understand, communicate, and experience reality. As we add new words to our vocabulary, we are not just learning new terms, we are learning new ways of seeing the world. The words we use shape the way we think, and the way we think shapes the way we live. Expanding our vocabulary is one of the most powerful tools we have for expanding our consciousness. Regret is often seen as the result of failure, of things not turning out the way we hoped. We think of it as mourning the chances we missed, the opportunities we failed to grasp. But in truth, regret is not just about what didn't happen. It's about the parts of ourselves we never allowed to emerge, the truths we never dared to speak or act upon. The real pain of regret comes not from the things we did wrong, but from the parts of ourselves we never allowed to fully live. Consider a person who always dreamed of becoming an artist but never pursued it. Instead, they took a stable job, one that offered security but little personal fulfillment. Over the years, they find themselves longing for something more, but they've already built a life that feels too far removed from their passion. As they reflect, it's not the job itself that they regret, but the artist they never became. They regret not having the courage to embrace that part of themselves, to take the risk of living their truth. The regret they feel isn't about failing in their career. It's about not even trying to live in alignment with who they truly were at their core. In this way, regret doesn't come from external events alone. It comes from internal choices. The decision to ignore a deeper calling, to put aside a passion, or to silence a truth because of fear or convenience. It's about those moments when we chose comfort over authenticity, safety over vulnerability. The sadness we feel later is not simply because of missed opportunities, but because we didn't give ourselves the chance to be the person we could have been. Think of someone who stayed in a relationship that was no longer fulfilling because they were afraid of being alone. The relationship might have been comfortable, and they may have convinced themselves that it was enough. But as the years pass, they begin to regret not having the courage to walk away when they first knew the relationship wasn't right. They regret not choosing their own happiness, not speaking the truth about what they needed. They don't mourn the loss of the relationship itself, but the loss of the self they denied in order to stay in it. The regret isn't about what happened in the relationship, but about what they failed to acknowledge in themselves. This form of regret is not about failures in the traditional sense. We often think of failure as a bad decision, a misstep, or an action that led to an undesirable outcome. But regret tied to unlived truths isn't about an event going wrong. It's about never having taken the step to live authentically in the first place. It's not the specific choice we regret, but the absence of making the choice that would have aligned with who we really were. It's the what if that haunts us, the lingering feeling that we were meant to live differently, but somehow didn't. Regret in this sense doesn't only appear later in life. It can be felt even in the midst of our day-to-day lives when we realize we're not living according to our values or our true desires. For example, a person might find themselves stuck in a routine that feels increasingly meaningless. They go through the motions, but deep down, they know they are not fully engaged with their life. They long for something deeper, but they are too afraid to change. Over time, this quiet dissatisfaction grows, and regret starts to echo in the background. They may not be able to pinpoint a specific mistake, but they feel the weight of their choices, not in what they did, but in what they didn't do, in the truth they didn't act upon. The echo of regret often comes in the form of self-doubt. We question our decisions and wonder what could have been. But the regret is never about failing in the eyes of others. It's about failing ourselves, about not having the courage to face the truths that lived inside us all along. The painful realization is that we can't go back and undo the moments we ignored our own desires. We can't rewrite the past, but we can acknowledge it. We can recognize that regret is a signal, a reminder that we have the power to change, to course correct, to start living in alignment with who we truly are before it's too late. Think of someone who has spent most of their life following the path set by others, family, society, expectations, without ever questioning if it was the path they wanted. They've been so focused on pleasing others or meeting the expectations around them that they've never stopped to ask themselves what they truly want. As they get older, they start to realize that they've been living someone else's life, not their own. The regret they feel isn't about the external successes they've achieved or the accolades they've received. It's about not having lived for themselves, not having honored their own truths. They regret the parts of themselves they suppressed, the dreams they never pursued, the voice they never allowed to be heard. This type of regret doesn't always come from grand, dramatic moments. Often, it's built up over time, piece by piece, through the small things we neglect. It's the unspoken words we didn't say, the dreams we put aside, the moments we chose not to act. These things accumulate and eventually form a quiet weight that we can't ignore. The weight isn't the result of a single mistake. It's the accumulation of missed opportunities to live authentically, to speak the truth, to take the leap. The worst part of regret is not that it's too late to change, but that it leaves us with the lingering feeling that we could have done things differently. The question we keep asking ourselves is, why didn't I act when I had the chance? The truth we failed to embody continues to echo in our minds, not as a judgment of what we did wrong, but as a reminder of what we never fully embraced. But regret is not something we must carry endlessly. It can be a powerful tool for reflection, a way to recognize where we've held ourselves back, and a prompt to make changes in our present and future. Instead of seeing regret as a source of pain, we can choose to see it as a guide, an indicator that there is still time to live in alignment with our truths, to step into the life we've always wanted to create. Regret can only weigh us down if we allow it to control our view of the past. If we acknowledge it as part of our journey, as a reminder to live fully and without hesitation, it loses its grip. It becomes a catalyst for change rather than a burden to carry. In the end, it's not the things we did wrong that will define us, it's the things we never dared to do. Regret isn't about failure, it's about missed truths, about moments when we chose not to live authentically. The path to healing lies not in wishing we had done things differently, but in choosing to embody those truths now. We cannot change the past, but we have the power to shape the present, to act on what we've learned, and to start living in alignment with the person we were always meant to be. To be understood by another person is a rare gift, one that many of us never truly experience. We often hear the phrase, "I understand," in casual conversations, but the depth of true understanding goes far beyond just words. It's about connecting with another person on a level that speaks to their core, where they don't need to explain themselves further because they are truly seen. This type of connection, where one person fully grasps what another is feeling, thinking, or experiencing, is a form of love. It's a quiet, powerful form of care that transcends all the typical gestures of affection. True empathy is the rarest kind of connection, and it is deeply nourishing when it happens. Think about a time when you've tried to explain something important to someone, only to feel like they didn't quite get it. Maybe you were going through a personal struggle, a complex emotion, or a difficult experience, and no matter how hard you tried, they just couldn't seem to grasp the depth of it. In those moments, you may have felt isolated, as though your inner world was locked away and inaccessible to anyone else. It's a painful feeling, one that many of us are familiar with. We long to be understood, to have someone look at us and see not just the surface, but the depth of our thoughts, fears, and desires. But how often do we find that kind of connection? How often do we find someone who can truly understand us? This lack of understanding is why many people feel alone, even when they are surrounded by others. Being in a room full of people who don't understand you is a lonely place to be. It's as though you are speaking a different language, one that no one else can comprehend. You might share your thoughts, your worries, or your joys, but if no one truly listens, if no one is truly present with you in that moment, then what's the point? It feels like you are just going through the motions of communication, but the heart of the conversation is missing. The connection is shallow, and the loneliness only deepens. But when you do find someone who understands you, it's a profound experience. It's as if a weight is lifted off your chest. For the first time, you feel heard. The words you say are not just acknowledged but felt. The person on the other end sees beyond your surface, beyond your actions and words, and taps into the unspoken parts of you. They know your silence, your hesitation, your subtle expressions. They get it. And in that moment, you feel known in a way that is rare and precious. Imagine sharing a moment with a close friend or partner where they don't just nod and smile in response to your words, but where they pause and say, "I understand what you're feeling." It's not just an intellectual understanding, it's an emotional one. They don't just know the facts of your story, they connect with the emotions behind it. They feel the weight of your struggles and the lightness of your joy. This is true empathy. It's not something that can be forced or faked. It's something that naturally arises when two people genuinely care for each other and make the effort to truly hear and understand one another. In a world where people often rush through conversations, distracted by their own thoughts or devices, moments of true understanding have become increasingly rare. Empathy takes time. It takes attention. It requires listening, not just with the ears, but with the heart. It's about being present, without distractions, and being willing to step into the other person's shoes, even if it's uncomfortable. It means putting aside your own judgments and assumptions, and simply accepting the other person's experience as valid. This is hard to do because it requires vulnerability and openness, both of which are in short supply in today's fast-paced world. But when we do experience true empathy, it can change us. It nourishes us. When someone truly understands us, it validates our existence. It tells us that we matter, that our thoughts, feelings, and experiences are worthy of attention. In that moment, we are seen in the most profound way possible. And in turn, this connection strengthens our bond with others. It allows us to connect on a deeper level, to build trust, and to create more meaningful relationships. Empathy also fosters growth. When we are understood, we are more likely to open up and be honest with others. We feel safe enough to express our vulnerabilities, knowing that we will not be judged or dismissed. This vulnerability is not a weakness, it's a strength. It's the foundation of genuine relationships, whether they are friendships, family ties, or romantic partnerships. True understanding creates a space where both people can grow, support each other, and become better versions of themselves. Consider a person who has experienced a deep loss, like the death of a loved one. This person may feel the weight of grief in ways that others can't even begin to imagine. They might feel an intense sadness that is difficult to articulate, or they might struggle to make sense of the emptiness left behind. In these moments, hearing someone say, "I understand," can be incredibly powerful, not just because the words themselves offer comfort, but because they convey a deep emotional resonance. The person on the other end knows the pain they are feeling, not because they have experienced the same thing, but because they have made the effort to truly understand the depth of their loss. They don't try to fix it or offer easy solutions. They simply acknowledge the grief and sit with it. That presence, that recognition, is a form of love that can't be measured. The rarity of being understood is part of what makes it so valuable. We are often so busy with our own lives, so wrapped up in our own thoughts, that it's easy to overlook the importance of really understanding someone else. We may think that we know someone, but knowing someone and truly understanding them are two different things. To understand someone is to see them fully, without trying to change them or make them conform to our expectations. It's about appreciating them for who they are, not who we want them to be. True empathy is not about solving problems or fixing what's broken. It's about being present, being willing to listen, and offering the gift of understanding. It's about creating a space where someone can feel truly heard, where their feelings and experiences are validated. This kind of connection is rare, but it is also one of the most nourishing experiences we can have. When we feel understood, we feel loved in a way that goes beyond words. It's a love that is deeper than any action or gesture. It is the foundation of authentic connection. And when we are able to offer that understanding to others, we create bonds that can withstand anything life throws our way. So many people walk through life feeling misunderstood or unseen, but when we find someone who truly understands us, it is like finding a rare treasure. It is something that nourishes us in ways we never expected, and it is a gift that we can then give to others. Understanding, true understanding, is a form of love that is powerful, healing, and transformative. It is the kind of love that connects us to one another in the most profound and meaningful ways. And in a world that often feels disconnected, that rare form of empathy is more precious than ever. What would happen if you had everything you wanted? If every desire, every goal was fulfilled, would you still know who you are? We often chase after things, success, recognition, wealth, relationships, believing that once we have them, we will feel complete, happy, and whole. But there's a paradox in this pursuit. Desire shapes who we are, guiding our choices, driving our actions, and defining our sense of self. But fulfillment, when we achieve what we want, can often strip away the very identity that desire built. Desire is a force that propels us forward. It gives us something to strive for, a reason to get out of bed in the morning. It shapes our dreams, our values, and even how we see the world. The person who wants to be successful will make decisions and take actions that align with that goal. Their desire to succeed defines how they spend their time, whom they associate with, and what they focus on. Similarly, someone who desires peace might structure their life around finding calm, avoiding chaos, and seeking tranquility. Desire molds us into the people we are by providing direction and purpose. However, once those desires are met, something interesting happens. The person who has reached success may no longer feel the same drive that once motivated them. The things that once defined them, their goals, their ambitions, no longer feel as important. The very thing that made them who they were, the pursuit of something more, is now gone. What remains is a person who has achieved everything they wanted, but is left questioning what to do next. In this moment, fulfillment can become a kind of void. If everything you thought would make you happy has been acquired, who are you without the desire to chase? When fulfillment arrives, it sometimes brings with it a sense of emptiness rather than contentment. Imagine someone who has worked their whole life to become the top in their field, whether it's in business, sports, or the arts. After years of hard work, they achieve this goal. They get the recognition, the money, the admiration, but once the initial excitement fades, they realize something unsettling. They don't feel different. They don't feel complete. They feel the same as before, only now they're left with the question, what next? Their identity, so long tied to the ambition of success, no longer has a clear anchor. The desire that once drove them is gone, and with it, their sense of purpose seems to dissipate. This is the paradox of fulfillment. It dissolves the very thing that made you strive in the first place. Desire shapes your identity, because it creates a story of who you are and what you want. When that story reaches its climax, when your desires are satisfied, that narrative ends. What do you do then? Do you find a new desire? Or do you find yourself struggling with a sense of loss because your identity was so tied to the journey, not the destination? Think of a person who constantly strives for external approval, maybe through social media, relationships, or accomplishments. Every like, every compliment, every accolade fuels their sense of self. They are constantly seeking validation from the outside world. But what happens when that validation stops coming? Or when they realize that no matter how much they achieve, they still feel unsatisfied. Their identity, built on the foundation of external recognition, begins to feel fragile. Fulfillment doesn't come from external sources, it comes from within. But if all they know is the validation of others, they find themselves empty when that validation fades away. It's not just external desires that create this mirage of fulfillment. Internal desires can also shape us in similar ways. Consider someone who desires to be a good person, to live up to their own standards of morality and integrity. They may build their life around helping others, being kind, and acting in ways that align with their values. But when they achieve a sense of moral fulfillment, they might encounter a different kind of emptiness. Their identity has been so wrapped up in the idea of being good, of doing the right thing, that they begin to question their own worth outside of these actions. They might wonder, if they no longer feel the need to prove their goodness, do they lose their sense of self? This is the risk of tying our identity so closely to fulfillment. If we base who we are on what we have or what we achieve, we risk losing our sense of self when those things are no longer present. We find ourselves defined by desires that we no longer need to chase. So what happens when the story we've been telling ourselves for so long comes to an end? When fulfillment arrives, it can feel like an ending, and endings often leave us with questions. But fulfillment is not inherently bad. It's simply that we often misunderstand its nature. We believe it will give us the answers we've been searching for. We think that once we reach a certain goal, we'll finally be content, peaceful, or whole. However, fulfillment often has the opposite effect. It reveals the emptiness that was hidden beneath our desires, showing us that what we were truly searching for was not outside of us but within. Fulfillment does not guarantee lasting happiness. It simply satisfies the specific desire we've been chasing, leaving us open to the possibility that there's always more we want, more to achieve, more to become. In some ways, this cycle of desire and fulfillment is never ending. Each time we fulfill one desire, another one takes its place. This isn't inherently a bad thing, but it highlights the fleeting nature of fulfillment. It comes and it goes. If our identity is rooted in the fulfillment of desires, we'll constantly be searching for the next thing to fulfill. But if we can shift our perspective, recognizing that fulfillment is just one chapter in an ongoing journey, we might find peace in the process rather than the outcome. The key is to stop seeing fulfillment as the end of the story and to start seeing it as a moment of reflection, a chance to pause and reconsider. It's about realizing that desires, while powerful, are not the defining force of who we are. Our identity is not something that can be defined by a single achievement or the fulfillment of a goal. It is a continuous unfolding, shaped by our choices, our responses, and the meaning we give to our experiences. True fulfillment comes not from reaching the top of the mountain, but from embracing the journey with all its challenges and growth. At the heart of the mirage of fulfillment is the understanding that the chase itself is what gives life meaning. It's the pursuit, not the destination, that shapes us. When we place too much weight on the destination, on fulfillment, we forget that fulfillment itself is not a final point, but a temporary moment in the larger story of our lives. Embrace the desires, pursue your goals, but always remember that fulfillment is not the end of the road. It is the moment where you take a breath, look back at how far you've come, and prepare yourself for the next leg of the journey. Because in the end, it's not the fulfillment that matters, but the person you become along the way. The battles that shape us are often not the ones we fight out in the open. They're the silent struggles that take place in our minds, the ones that no one else sees. We may fight these battles every day, yet the scars they leave are invisible. These are the wars between doubt and confidence, fear and courage, guilt and forgiveness. The external world might never know the weight we carry, but the toll it takes on us is real. In these quiet moments, we are confronted with our deepest challenges, and it is here, in the silence of our thoughts, that we face the hardest wars. Think about the daily struggles people face when they're alone with their thoughts. It could be someone fighting to maintain their self-worth in a world that constantly pushes them to be more, do more, achieve more. They wake up in the morning, already weighed down by the fear that they're not enough. These thoughts creep in before their feet even hit the floor. They look in the mirror and question their value. These battles don't make the evening news, but they shape the person in profound ways. The fight is internal, yet it can be just as exhausting as any physical challenge. They may smile at others, but inside, they're battling to hold on to a sense of self. The mind is a battleground where we face our own worst enemies, our doubts, our insecurities, our fears. We don't often speak about these struggles, not because they aren't real, but because they're hard to put into words. It's easier to point to physical scars, to show the evidence of what we've been through, than to try and explain a war that only happens behind our eyes. But these silent battles are the ones that define us. They test our resilience, our patience, and our ability to persevere when the world seems unaware. Consider the experience of someone who's trying to overcome a past mistake. They carry the weight of regret, replaying the same moments in their mind over and over. Maybe they hurt someone they loved, or they took a wrong turn in their career. Every time they try to move forward, the past comes rushing back. This war in their mind isn't something anyone else can see, but it affects every decision they make. They might put on a brave face in public, but inside, they're locked in a constant struggle to forgive themselves. It's a fight that never ends, because the past keeps trying to reclaim its hold on them. The scar of this battle is invisible, but it's deeply felt. Then there's the battle that many people face in the quiet moments of doubt. A person might look at their life and feel as if they're not living up to their potential. They might have big dreams, but the reality feels far from those aspirations. In the stillness of the night, they're consumed by thoughts of inadequacy. They wonder why they can't seem to reach the level of success they hope for, why their efforts sometimes fall short. This fight isn't fought in public, but in the silence of their own mind, where they are their harshest critic. The external world might praise their progress, but inside, they're battling the feeling of never being good enough. These kinds of battles often leave people feeling isolated. They wonder if anyone else feels the way they do, if anyone else wrestles with the same thoughts. But the truth is, we all do. Every person has their own silent wars. We might not talk about them, but they shape our lives. The woman trying to prove her worth in a competitive workplace, the man struggling with addiction but too ashamed to ask for help, the teenager battling with feelings of loneliness, they are all fighting their own silent battles. No one else sees it, but the emotional and mental toll is very real. And sometimes these battles take the form of something deeper, like a fight for hope itself. People who are facing depression often find themselves trapped in a cycle of despair that no one can truly understand unless they've been there themselves. It's not the kind of struggle that can be solved with a few kind words or a friendly gesture. It's a deep internal battle where each day feels like a fight to just get out of bed. The world may see them smiling, but inside, they're waging a war that no one knows about. They want to feel better, but the weight of their own thoughts pulls them back down. The struggle is silent, but it's relentless. These battles might seem invisible, but they are anything but insignificant. The silence of our thoughts can sometimes be more deafening than any external noise. The pressure to succeed, the fear of failure, the guilt, the doubts, they don't go away just because we ignore them. Instead, they grow louder, more consuming, until we find ourselves overwhelmed. We might be standing in a crowd, surrounded by people, yet still feel completely alone in these struggles. It's easy to feel like no one understands, like we're the only ones fighting these battles. But the reality is, everyone has their own wars to fight. Some are more visible than others, but that doesn't make the silent battles any less real. We all struggle with our own fears, regrets, and insecurities. The difference is how we face these struggles. Some people push through, some bury their feelings, and others seek help when they can no longer carry the weight alone. It's important to recognize that these silent battles don't make us weak, they make us human. We all have our moments of doubt and pain, but it's how we respond to them that shapes who we become. What makes these silent battles so significant is that they define the person we are when no one is watching. It's easy to put on a facade, to present a strong, perfect version of ourselves to the world. But true strength is found in the way we face our inner battles. When we allow ourselves to confront our fears and insecurities, when we find the courage to keep moving forward even when no one else sees the fight, that's when we begin to heal. Those who fought their silent battles and emerged on the other side are often the strongest because they have faced their deepest fears and still kept going. It's also important to recognize that no one has to fight these battles alone. Reaching out, talking to someone, or asking for help doesn't make us weak. It makes us brave. The person who is able to acknowledge their inner struggles and share them with someone else is taking the first step toward healing. Sometimes just knowing that someone else understands can make a huge difference. It can remind us that we're not alone in our fight and that there is strength in vulnerability. The greatest battles, those that shape who we are often the ones that leave no visible scars. These silent struggles are not fought for recognition or praise. They are fought because they are part of our journey. And though they may not be seen by the world, they are what make us who we are. The wars we fight in our minds shape our character, define our resilience, and build our strength. It's not always easy, and it's often painful, but these battles ultimately lead to growth. The silence of these struggles doesn't make them any less significant. It makes them the most important battles of all. Peace is often misunderstood. We think of peace as a quiet moment, a break from the noise of the world. When we seek peace, we imagine it as the absence of distractions, a silence where nothing demands our attention. But peace is not just the absence of noise, it's the presence of clarity. True peace comes from understanding, from a state of mind that is clear, even amidst chaos. It's the ability to remain grounded and focused, no matter what is happening around us. Imagine standing in the middle of a busy street. Cars rush by, people walk in every direction, and the noise is constant. At first, it feels overwhelming. The rush of activity presses in, and it's hard to think clearly. But now, picture the same scene from a different perspective. You are calm, not because the street has quieted, but because you have gained a sense of clarity. You can see everything happening around you without feeling swept away by it. The noise still exists, but it no longer shakes you. Your mind is clear, and with that clarity comes peace. It's not the silence that brings calm, but your understanding of the situation. You have the ability to observe without getting lost in the noise. This is the kind of peace we need to cultivate in our daily lives. We live in a world filled with noise, external and internal. There's the noise of deadlines, responsibilities, and expectations. There's the constant chatter in our minds, the worry about the future, the regrets of the past, and the unceasing list of things we must do. At times, it feels like we're drowning in all this noise. But real peace comes when we find clarity within all of it. It's not about waiting for the noise to stop. It's about learning how to listen, how to see, and how to find stillness in the middle of the storm. Take a moment to think about a decision you've been struggling with. Maybe it's something small, like where to go for dinner, or something bigger, like whether to take a new job or end a relationship. At first, all the possible options swirl around in your mind, each one pulling you in a different direction. The noise of possibilities, fears, and doubts fills your mind, and you feel paralyzed. But then, after some time, you start to gain clarity. You quiet the inner noise long enough to see the situation more clearly. You understand what's at stake, what you truly want, and what you're willing to give up or gain. The noise hasn't disappeared, but your understanding has sharpened. And with that understanding comes a calm certainty. The decision doesn't feel as overwhelming anymore because you can see it clearly. This clarity doesn't come from silence. It comes from the ability to cut through the distractions and focus on what matters. When we find clarity, we can make decisions with confidence, even if the world around us is still noisy. It's the difference between reacting in haste to a situation and responding thoughtfully. Peace doesn't mean avoiding the noise. It means learning to function within it without losing yourself. Think about a person who is caught in a heated argument. The voices around them rise, emotions flare, and it's easy to get lost in the chaos. But imagine if, in that moment, they are able to step back and find clarity. They understand their own feelings and the other person's perspective. They know what they need to express and what they need to let go of. They don't react to the noise, they respond from a place of understanding. This kind of clarity allows them to remain calm and composed, not because the argument has quieted, but because they have found peace in their own understanding of the situation. In our personal lives, we often confuse stillness with silence. We think that if we can only escape the noise, we will find peace. But stillness isn't silence, it's understanding. Stillness comes when we can sit with ourselves and make sense of our thoughts, feelings, and experiences. It's the ability to be at peace with where we are, even when everything around us is uncertain. When we achieve this stillness, we don't need to escape the noise. We can exist within it and remain grounded. The world may still be full of distractions, but we no longer let them control us. Consider how we experience stress. When we feel overwhelmed, it's often because our thoughts are scattered and our focus is lost. We think about everything that needs to be done, everything that could go wrong, and everything that might have been missed. The noise inside our heads becomes so loud that we struggle to find our way. But when we take a moment to pause and regain clarity, the stress begins to fade. We see our situation more clearly. We understand what can be done now, what can wait, and what's truly important. The external world hasn't changed, but our ability to see it with clarity has brought us peace. This doesn't mean that all problems will disappear the moment we gain clarity. Life is full of challenges, and peace doesn't mean avoiding them. It means we face them with understanding. Clarity helps us see things as they truly are, without the distortions of fear, doubt, or impatience. When we understand the situation, we can act with intention rather than reacting impulsively. Clarity allows us to make choices that are aligned with our values and our goals, and this alignment brings a sense of inner peace that isn't dependent on external circumstances. Think about how we handle disappointment. It's easy to become disillusioned when things don't go as planned. We might feel that life is unfair or that we've been cheated. In these moments, the noise of frustration and regret can drown out everything else. But if we can step back and gain clarity, we begin to understand that disappointment is just a part of life. We recognize that setbacks are opportunities for growth and learning, not signs of failure. With clarity, we can accept what has happened and find peace in knowing that it is not the end of the story. In the same way, clarity brings peace in times of uncertainty. When we face an unknown future, it's easy to become overwhelmed by the possibilities. The fear of what might happen can cloud our judgment and create anxiety. But with clarity, we understand that uncertainty is a natural part of life. We know that we cannot control everything, but we can control how we respond. This understanding allows us to move forward, not with fear, but with confidence in our ability to navigate whatever comes next. The key to peace is not in eliminating the noise, but in learning how to find clarity within it. It's about understanding that stillness comes from within, not from the absence of sound or activity. When we understand ourselves and the world around us, we can move through life with a sense of calm, even when things are chaotic. Peace is not the lack of struggle, it's the presence of clarity in the midst of it. It's the ability to stay grounded, to make sense of our thoughts and feelings, and to respond with understanding rather than reacting in haste. Clarity is the foundation of peace. It's not something we seek outside ourselves, but something we cultivate within. When we gain clarity, we don't just quiet the noise around us, we learn to navigate it with grace. Peace comes when we understand what is truly important, when we see things as they are, and when we align our actions with our values. This kind of peace doesn't rely on the absence of conflict or uncertainty. It arises from the presence of understanding. When we understand ourselves, our circumstances, and our choices, we find peace, even in the most challenging situations. Forgiveness is often seen as a gesture of kindness toward others. We think that by forgiving someone, we're letting them off the hook for what they've done. But forgiveness doesn't really work that way. It's not about the other person. Forgiveness is for you. It's a way of freeing yourself from the grip of anger, resentment, or hurt that holds you down. When you forgive, you aren't excusing someone's wrong actions. You're letting go of the emotional weight that comes with them. You're choosing to release yourself from the chains that bind you to the past. Think about a time when someone hurt you deeply. It could have been a betrayal by a friend, an unfair action at work, or even a loved one's failure to meet your expectations. In the beginning, the pain is raw. You feel the sting of the offense every time you think about it. Your mind replays the event over and over, and each time it does, it brings back those feelings of anger, frustration, or sadness. You may even feel that holding on to those feelings gives you control, that by holding on to the hurt, you're punishing the person who wronged you. But what you might not realize is that by holding on to those emotions, you're only hurting yourself. Every time you think about the event, every time you relive the pain, it keeps you tethered to the past. You may think that by holding on to the anger, you're making the other person feel bad or making them pay for what they did. But in reality, the only one who suffers is you. The other person might have moved on, or they may not even know the depth of your feelings. Meanwhile, you're carrying the weight of their actions with you, and that burden doesn't go away until you choose to let it go. Forgiveness, then, isn't about absolving the other person. It's about choosing not to let their actions control your emotional state. When you forgive, you're not excusing their behavior. You're simply choosing to stop letting it affect you. You're deciding that the pain of holding on to that hurt is worse than the pain of letting it go. The person who wronged you might never apologize or even acknowledge the hurt they've caused. Forgiveness isn't about them. It's about you and your ability to move forward without being weighed down by past wounds. Think of forgiveness as releasing a tight grip on a rope. The tighter you hold on to it, the more it hurts your hand. The rope may represent the person who hurt you, the action they took, or the emotion that ties you to the event. As long as you hold on to it tightly, you continue to feel the pain. But when you let go, you free your hand. The rope is still there, but it no longer causes you the same pain. You've made the choice to release it, and in doing so, you've freed yourself from the hurt it caused. This doesn't mean that forgiveness is easy. It's not about forgetting what happened or pretending that it didn't matter. It's about accepting that the past cannot be changed and choosing to stop allowing it to dictate your present and future. Letting go of the hurt doesn't mean that the wrongdoer gets away with their actions. It just means that you're no longer going to carry that pain with you. You're choosing to free yourself from the emotional prison that keeps you stuck in anger and resentment. In fact, holding on to anger and resentment can be harmful to your own well-being. Studies have shown that carrying grudges or harboring negative emotions can affect your mental and physical health. It can increase stress, contribute to depression, and even affect your relationships with others. The longer you hold on to unresolved hurt, the more damage it can do to your own peace of mind. Forgiveness is not just about letting go of negative feelings toward another person. It's about choosing to protect your own health and happiness. There's a common misconception that forgiveness means letting someone off the hook, that by forgiving, you are saying that what they did was okay. But forgiveness is not about making the wrong act okay. It's about letting go of the grip that the offense has on your emotions. By forgiving, you're saying, I'm choosing not to be controlled by this hurt anymore. You're choosing peace over pain, freedom over bitterness. Forgiveness allows you to move on, to release yourself from the negative energy that keeps you stuck. It's also important to understand that forgiveness doesn't always happen instantly. It's a process, one that takes time and effort. You may need to revisit your feelings, reflect on what happened, and slowly work through the anger or disappointment you feel. But with each step, you are taking control of your emotions. You are choosing to move forward, to no longer be held hostage by the past. And with each small act of letting go, you will feel lighter. The weight of resentment will start to lift, and your emotional burden will become more manageable. Forgiveness is also a gift to yourself. It's a way of freeing your mind and heart from the constant pull of past wounds. Think of it as clearing out a cluttered room in your mind. When you forgive, you clear away the emotional clutter that distracts you from living your life. The space you create is filled with the possibility of peace, of healing, and of new experiences. By letting go of the past, you make room for the future. You stop dragging the weight of old hurts with you into new opportunities. When we forgive, we often think we are doing something for the other person. But the truth is, we are the ones who benefit the most. Forgiveness allows us to break free from the emotional shackles of resentment. It allows us to move forward without being tethered to the pain of past experiences. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or excusing what happened. It means choosing to live without the weight of that past moment hanging over us. It's a way to protect our own mental and emotional well-being. Forgiveness is also about reclaiming your power. When we hold on to hurt, we give the other person power over us. We allow their actions to dictate our emotional state, even long after the event has passed. Forgiveness allows us to take back control. It's a decision to no longer let someone else's actions define our feelings or our sense of peace. We are free to move forward on our own terms. In the end, forgiveness is about freedom. It's about letting go of the past so that it no longer holds us hostage. It's a process that requires courage and self-compassion. Forgiveness isn't always easy, but it is always worth it. When we forgive, we free ourselves from the pain that has been holding us back. We choose peace, healing, and growth. We let go not to make the other person feel better, but to rescue ourselves from the grip of anger, hurt, and resentment. In this way, forgiveness is the truest form of self-care, a gift we give to ourselves as we choose to live free from the past. Dreams often seem strange or nonsensical, a jumble of images, sounds, and feelings that don't make immediate sense. But what if dreams are more than just random fragments from the day? What if they are unfinished dialogues, conversations the mind has been trying to complete? These dialogues are not with others, but with ourselves. The subconscious mind takes over while we sleep, attempting to wrap up conversations we've walked away from, thoughts we didn't finish, and feelings we didn't fully process. Think of a time when you were talking with someone and the conversation was left hanging. Maybe you were discussing something important, but the conversation got interrupted, or you simply didn't know how to finish it. In those moments, the issue is often unresolved in your mind. It stays with you, echoing in the background, waiting for closure. Now, imagine that these unresolved moments continue to haunt your thoughts as you go about your day. These unspoken words may drift to the surface of your consciousness when you're least expecting it. And sometimes, in dreams, your subconscious attempts to finish that conversation. These unfinished dialogues aren't always specific or clear, but the emotions they stir are. They push us to find clarity, even when we're not actively seeking it. Take, for example, the common experience of dreaming about an argument or disagreement. Perhaps you have a conversation during the day that leaves you feeling unsettled, but you don't confront the other person about it. When you sleep, your mind replays the situation, but this time, you might imagine saying everything you wish you had said. In your dream, you're able to express your thoughts freely, giving you a sense of closure that you didn't get while awake. The conversation you couldn't finish in real life plays out in your mind as a way of helping you process what you felt and maybe even understand the situation better. Sometimes, the subconscious can take a more abstract approach. A dream might not feature a conversation at all, but a feeling that lingers. It's not about specific words, but about emotions that haven't been dealt with. For example, you might dream about a long-lost friend or someone you haven't spoken to in years. The dream doesn't follow a clear storyline, but there is a sense of connection. You wake up with a feeling of longing or a realization that you need to reach out. These dreams are invitations to reconnect with parts of ourselves we've neglected, whether that means making amends with someone or finding peace with a chapter in our life that was left open. It's not just conversations with other people that remain unfinished in our minds. Often, it's the dialogue we have with ourselves that continues in our dreams. There are times when we make decisions during the day that leave us unsure, but we don't stop to address our uncertainty. The mind moves forward, but the doubts and questions remain in the background. In our dreams, these uncertainties come to the forefront. You might find yourself in a dream where you're searching for something, unsure of what it is, but determined to find it. This could be a reflection of the confusion you felt earlier in the day. The dream doesn't offer a solution, but it gives you space to wrestle with that internal dialogue, to make peace with what you don't yet understand. For instance, consider someone who is struggling with a big life decision, maybe whether to move to a new city, change jobs, or end a relationship. The decision is not made consciously, but it nags at them. Their mind processes these thoughts while they sleep. In the dream, they might find themselves in a completely new environment, one that feels both strange and familiar. It's a place where they can test out their thoughts, consider the new possibilities, and test how they would feel about a change. The dream doesn't provide an answer, but it allows the person to continue their dialogue with themselves, helping them work through the conflict of change. This dialogue can also involve our deeper desires, those parts of ourselves we don't always acknowledge. Dreams can bring to light ambitions, fears, or needs we've buried during the day. Perhaps a dream presents a scenario where you're doing something you never thought possible, like giving a speech or traveling to a faraway country. While awake, you might dismiss these ideas as unrealistic or impossible, but in the dream world, they surface as a way to remind you of desires that have been suppressed. The dream opens a space for you to entertain the possibility of pursuing something you've neglected, a conversation with your inner self that you haven't allowed to happen in your waking life. The subconscious mind also attempts to communicate the emotions we don't fully understand. Take, for example, the feeling of sadness or anxiety that might creep in without a clear cause. You wake up feeling down, but can't pinpoint exactly why. In these cases, the dream becomes a way for the mind to express what's been hidden, whether it's grief, guilt, or unresolved tension. The dream may not directly show the source of your emotion, but it will often present it in symbolic form. Perhaps you dream of losing something important to you, or facing a challenge you feel unprepared for. The dream doesn't give you a direct solution, but it makes the feeling known, bringing the dialogue about your emotional state to the surface. Sometimes, dreams serve as a kind of emotional rehearsal. They allow you to work through potential future events, to practice responses to situations you might face. You might dream of a difficult conversation you need to have, imagining yourself navigating it with ease and confidence. In real life, you may be dreading the conversation, but the dream offers you an opportunity to try out different outcomes. It's not about predicting what will happen, but about giving you the tools to respond to your challenges with a clearer, more grounded mindset. The dream might even allow you to see yourself acting in ways that you didn't think were possible, reinforcing a dialogue that helps you grow into the person you aspire to be. We often dismiss dreams as meaningless or strange, but they are not just random fragments of the day's thoughts. They are attempts to process and resolve what our conscious minds can't. Every dream is like an unfinished conversation, an open letter that our subconscious mind writes to us while we sleep. They provide insight into our feelings, desires, fears, and unresolved issues. Dreams offer us a chance to explore parts of ourselves that we don't fully understand, giving us the opportunity to finish the conversations we never quite managed to have during the day. In the quiet of the night, the mind continues to work, picking up where the conscious mind left off. What we think of as disconnected, strange imagery may actually be the pieces of a larger dialogue we haven't been able to complete. Dreams are invitations to explore these unfinished conversations, to reconnect with parts of ourselves we may have overlooked or ignored. In this way, dreams are not only a reflection of our subconscious, but a roadmap for deeper understanding, offering us clarity and guidance as we work through the complexities of our lives. The more we listen to our dreams, the more we allow ourselves to understand and integrate these unfinished dialogues. humans are deeply afraid of being forgotten. We see it in our search for recognition, in our desire to leave a legacy. We want to be remembered for our actions, our ideas, or the way we touch the lives of others. It's a fear that drives much of what we do, whether it's building careers, crafting art, or even just seeking approval from those around us. But in the process of chasing after this desire to be remembered, we often lose sight of who we are. We forget ourselves in the pursuit of fame, recognition, and the fleeting validation of others. The irony is that in trying to carve out a lasting place in the world, we risk losing the very essence of what makes us unique. Consider someone who works tirelessly to build a career. They dedicate countless hours to perfecting their craft, constantly seeking acknowledgement, striving for promotions, or collecting accolades. The drive to be seen and acknowledged becomes their primary focus. Over time, however, this quest for recognition can slowly erode their sense of self. Their decisions, once guided by personal values and desires, begin to reflect the expectations of others. They might take on projects not because they are passionate about them, but because they will garner praise or approval. Slowly, they find themselves caught in a cycle of external validation, where their worth is tied not to who they truly are, but to how others perceive them. The pursuit of recognition consumes them, and in the process, their own authenticity fades into the background. This isn't just about careers. It shows up in our relationships, too. People often change or hide aspects of themselves to fit into social groups or to be accepted. In trying to belong, they may suppress their true thoughts, beliefs, or desires. They become what others expect them to be, shaping themselves to fit the mold of societal standards. The desire to be liked, to be accepted, to be remembered, can overshadow the need to be authentic. People might adopt personalities or preferences they think others will appreciate, leaving behind parts of themselves that don't align with that image. In the end, they become a version of themselves that they think will be remembered, but that version is not who they truly are. They fade into a mold of external expectations, and in doing so, they lose their sense of identity. Fame, too, can be a dangerous pursuit. Many people dream of becoming famous, of being recognized for their talents, their accomplishments, or even their personality. Fame, after all, promises to fulfill the fear of being forgotten. But fame often comes at a steep price. In the pursuit of public adoration, individuals may be forced to sacrifice their privacy, their values, or their authenticity. They might feel pressured to conform to a public image that fits the expectations of their audience. Over time, this image can become so all-consuming that the person they were before fame is lost. The hunger for more recognition can overshadow the pursuit of true fulfillment. They may become a commodity to be consumed by the public, their worth tied to their public persona rather than their genuine self. Think of a well-known actor or musician. Their name is on the lips of millions, and their face appears everywhere. But behind the scenes, they might feel trapped in a role they've been forced to play. They are expected to act a certain way, look a certain way, and speak a certain way to maintain their popularity. The more famous they become, the less room they have to express their true selves. In the process of satisfying the demands of fame, they might find themselves drifting further and further away from the person they once were. Their identity, once fluid and complex, becomes simplified to fit the expectations of their audience. In their effort to be remembered, they risk vanishing into the image they've created for the world, leaving behind the parts of themselves that are most authentic. This isn't just true for famous individuals. It applies to all of us in various ways. In our daily lives, we may find ourselves caught in the trap of seeking validation through social media or public recognition. We post pictures or updates not necessarily because they reflect who we are, but because we want others to see us a certain way. We carefully curate our image to reflect a version of ourselves that will be appreciated or admired. We may even begin to believe that the version of ourselves we present online is the only one that matters. Over time, we start to internalize these external validations, and our true selves become obscured. The likes, shares, and comments become the measure of our worth, and we find ourselves repeating the cycle of seeking approval, sometimes without even realizing it. The desire for recognition and the fear of being forgotten are deeply ingrained in human nature. We all want to feel significant, to know that our lives have meaning. We seek recognition from others as a way of affirming our value, but in chasing after this validation, we often lose sight of what makes us truly valuable, our authenticity. We become more focused on the image we project than on the person we are at our core. The paradox of this pursuit is that the more we try to be remembered, the more we risk losing the very essence of who we are. It's a difficult balance to strike. There is nothing inherently wrong with wanting to be remembered or to achieve success. These goals can be motivating and fulfilling in many ways. The problem arises when the pursuit of recognition begins to define us, when it becomes more important than our own sense of self. At that point, we've lost our way. We've let our worth be dictated by external forces rather than by the simple, undeniable truth that we are enough as we are. The answer isn't to stop seeking recognition or to withdraw from the world. It's to find a way to exist authentically, to pursue goals that align with who we truly are, rather than with who we think others want us to be. It's about making peace with the idea that we don't need to be remembered by everyone. We don't need to be famous or validated by others to know that we matter. Our true worth lies in our ability to be ourselves, unapologetically and without compromise. When we stop seeking validation for its own sake, we can begin to live more fully. We can chase after goals not because we want to be remembered, but because they are meaningful to us. We can build relationships that are based on genuine connection rather than superficial approval. When we let go of the need to be remembered by the world, we can focus on making a difference in the lives of those around us, knowing that true fulfillment comes not from fame, but from living authentically. In the end, the fear of being forgotten often stems from a lack of faith in our own inherent value. We chase after fame, recognition, and external validation because we believe that these things will prove our worth. But the truth is, we don't need to be remembered by the world to matter. Our worth is already inherent, and when we embrace that, we free ourselves from the need for validation. In doing so, we allow ourselves to live authentically, in a way that is not defined by what others think of us, but by who we are at our core. And in that authenticity, we find the peace that comes from knowing we are enough, exactly as we are. For most of our lives, we are taught to look for meaning outside ourselves. We are told that purpose is something we must find, as though it's hidden somewhere in the world, waiting for us to discover it. From an early age, we hear the message that we must search for meaning in the right career, the perfect relationship, or the achievement of great success. We think that if we can just figure out what we're supposed to do, or where we're meant to be, everything will fall into place. But the truth is, meaning isn't something we stumble upon. It's something we create. Purpose isn't found, it's formed. It's not something external that can be located or given to us by the world. It's an act of creation, a process of choosing what matters and giving it value. We make meaning through the choices we make every day, the way we engage with the world, and how we decide to approach our lives. Meaning isn't waiting for us, it's something we form in each moment. Think of a person who decides to become an artist. In the beginning, they might not know exactly what art they want to create or what their purpose is as an artist. They might feel lost, uncertain about where to begin. But rather than waiting for inspiration to strike, they make the decision to start by picking up a brush, by sketching a line, by trying. Over time, they begin to form their own meaning through their art. The more they create, the more they discover what resonates with them, what excites them, and what they want to express to the world. In this process, they are not simply discovering meaning, they are building it. Their purpose grows from the act of creation itself, not from some external discovery. They didn't wait for a clear vision of their purpose to appear. They made it by starting, by engaging, by committing to the process. Similarly, in our relationships, we often look for meaning from the other person, expecting them to fulfill us or to provide purpose in our lives. But the truth is, the meaning in relationships is something we actively create. A friendship or a partnership doesn't automatically carry meaning. It takes effort. It takes giving and receiving, understanding and working through challenges. It's about choosing to invest time and care into the relationship. Meaning doesn't just appear because two people meet. It develops through shared experiences, vulnerability, and mutual support. If we wait for meaning to be handed to us in relationships, we may find ourselves disappointed. But if we understand that we are the ones who form the meaning through our actions, we can approach our relationships with a sense of purpose and intention. The idea that meaning is something we form can be seen in how we approach our work. For many people, work is something they do simply to get by, to pay bills, or to meet external expectations. But when we see work as something we can imbue with meaning, it changes how we approach it. A person who sees their work as a chance to contribute, to create, or to help others can transform even the most mundane tasks into something meaningful. The purpose doesn't come from the job title or the paycheck. It comes from the attitude and intention we bring to our work. A teacher doesn't simply impart information. They create meaning by shaping minds, inspiring curiosity, and fostering growth. A caregiver doesn't just provide a service. They create meaning by offering compassion and support. In this way, meaning isn't defined by the job itself, but by how the person in that role chooses to engage with it. We often think that meaning is something that exists only in extraordinary moments, like a great achievement or a profound experience. But meaning is also in the small, everyday moments. It's in the way we choose to live our lives, in the choices we make even in routine activities. The simple act of cooking a meal, caring for a loved one, or listening to a friend can carry deep meaning if we decide to invest ourselves fully in those moments. The meaning comes not from what we do, but from how we approach it. If we treat life as a series of moments to be experienced fully, rather than tasks to be checked off a list, we find meaning in places we might have overlooked. Think about the way a person approaches a walk in the park. For one person, it might just be a physical activity to get some fresh air, while for another, it's a moment to reflect, to appreciate the beauty of nature, and to clear the mind. The walk itself is the same, but the meaning it carries is different for each person, based on how they choose to experience it. One person might be distracted by their thoughts, while the other is fully present, taking in the sights, sounds, and smells around them. Meaning is not about the activity itself, but the engagement with it. In every moment, we have the choice to make the experience meaningful or to let it pass by unnoticed. This idea of creating meaning applies to our struggles as well. When we go through hard times, we often feel like we're losing or being defeated. We see hardship as something that robs us of purpose, as though we're being stripped of meaning. But struggles, pain, and setbacks don't rob us of meaning. They are opportunities to create new meaning. When we face challenges, we can choose how to respond to them. We can see them as obstacles, or we can see them as opportunities for growth, learning, and resilience. The meaning doesn't come from the difficulty itself. It comes from how we choose to face it. People who have faced adversity and emerged stronger often talk about how those challenges gave them a deeper sense of purpose, not because the pain was easy, but because they found meaning in the struggle. In many ways, meaning is like a story we tell ourselves. It's not something that exists in a vacuum, waiting to be discovered. It's something we create as we go, in every choice we make, in every action we take. The story of our lives is shaped by how we choose to live them, by how we decide to respond to the world and the people around us. We can live a life full of meaning by making conscious decisions about what matters to us, by engaging fully with the world, and by choosing to create purpose through our actions. This doesn't mean that meaning is something we can always fully control. Life is full of uncertainty, and sometimes we find ourselves in situations where it's hard to see the meaning. But even in those moments, meaning can still be formed. It's about choosing how to view the situation, how to learn from it, and how to grow through it. In those times, our ability to create meaning is often tested, and it's in those tests that our character is shaped. Purpose is not something that falls into our laps. It's something we shape through our decisions, our actions, and our presence in the world. Meaning doesn't come from searching for the right career or the perfect relationship. It comes from choosing to engage fully with life, to create something that reflects who we are, and to act in ways that align with our deepest values. We can't wait for meaning to find us. We have to form it, one choice at a time. By doing so, we create lives that are rich with purpose, not because we discovered some great truth, but because we chose to make meaning where it didn't exist before. When we think of listening, we often picture it as a simple act, hearing words, nodding along, and perhaps offering a response. But true listening is far more than just hearing. To listen truly is to open yourself up to the other person's perspective, to let their words, their feelings, and their experiences touch you in a way that can change your own understanding of the world. It's not just about hearing what's being said. It's about allowing yourself to be affected by it, to let the other person's voice shift your view or touch your heart. To listen in this way requires surrender, a willingness to let go of your own thoughts and judgments long enough to fully understand someone else. Imagine a conversation where the other person is sharing something deeply personal, perhaps a struggle, a dream, or a fear. In that moment, you have two choices. You can simply listen, letting the words wash over you while your mind remains on your own thoughts, preparing what to say next. Or you can truly listen, focusing on what they are saying, feeling their emotions, and reflecting on their experience. In the second option, you risk being changed by the conversation. Their words may challenge your own beliefs, evoke feelings you weren't expecting, or shift your perspective on the issue at hand. You may find yourself questioning assumptions you've held for years. This kind of listening requires vulnerability. It requires you to set aside your own experiences for a moment and allow someone else's reality to shape your own. To truly listen is to allow another person's truth to become a part of your own. This is not passive. It is an active decision to be present, to be open, and to engage with someone else's words at a deeper level. It's easy to think of listening as a simple transaction. I hear you, you hear me. But real listening goes beyond that. It requires presence, focus, and the ability to let go of your own agenda. When you listen in this way, you may find that you don't have all the answers, but you are closer to understanding. You are no longer just responding to someone's words. You are allowing their story to shape your own. Take a moment to think about the people who have truly listened to you in your life. When was the last time someone sat with you, gave you their full attention, and truly heard what you were saying? When that happens, it's as though you are no longer alone in your thoughts. You are seen and heard in a way that makes you feel understood. The person listening is not merely waiting for their turn to speak. They are diving into your experience, holding your words with care, and perhaps offering their own reflection in return. This kind of listening builds connection. It creates a space where both people feel valued and respected. In these moments, the relationship between the listener and the speaker is transformed because both are engaging in something deeper than just a back-and-forth exchange. The impact of transformative listening is not just felt in the conversation, it lingers long after. When we listen in this way, we carry something of the other person with us. They have shared a part of themselves, something vulnerable, something real, and that moment of connection shifts us. We are changed, if only slightly, by what we've heard. Sometimes this shift is obvious, and other times it is subtle. You may find yourself reflecting on the conversation days later, seeing things differently, or finding that your own views have shifted in response to what you heard. Transformative listening has the power to reframe how we see the world, not just in relation to the other person, but in relation to ourselves. Think about a situation where you're having a difficult conversation with someone, maybe a friend, a partner, or even a colleague. They are upset about something, and you have the choice to either try to fix the problem or simply listen. The desire to offer advice or solutions is strong, especially when you care about the person and want to help. But sometimes what the other person needs most is not advice, but someone who will listen without judgment. When you allow yourself to just listen, without the need to fix or solve, something remarkable happens. You create space for the other person to process their feelings, to feel heard, and to find their own way forward. In this moment, you may not have solved their problem, but you have allowed them to find meaning in their own experience. And in doing so, you might find that your own perspective shifts as well. You are no longer focused on the problem itself, but on the person's emotional journey. This kind of listening can be challenging, especially when the emotions in a conversation are intense. It's easy to get caught up in our own reactions, to feel defensive, or to want to rush in with a solution. But transformative listening requires patience and humility. It requires us to set aside our own judgments and reactions long enough to fully take in what the other person is experiencing. It asks us to be vulnerable, to be open to being affected by what we hear. And this vulnerability, while uncomfortable at times, is the key to building deeper, more meaningful relationships. When we listen in this way, we open ourselves up to new possibilities. We allow the conversation to unfold naturally, without forcing an outcome or rushing to a conclusion. Instead of trying to control the flow of the conversation, we let it happen. We make space for the other person to speak their truth, even if it's messy or complicated. And in doing so, we create the conditions for real connection. When we listen deeply, we give the other person the freedom to be themselves. We are no longer trying to change them or fix them. We are simply there, in the moment, hearing them. In the process, we also learn more about ourselves. The way we respond to what we hear says a lot about who we are and what we value. When we listen with empathy and openness, we show that we value the other person's experience. We demonstrate that we are willing to be changed by what they have to say. We also learn about our own assumptions, biases, and limitations. The more we practice this kind of listening, the more we are able to see the world from different perspectives. We begin to recognize that there is always more than one side to every story, and that true understanding comes from being willing to engage with all perspectives, not just our own. Listening in this way doesn't always come naturally. It requires practice, patience, and a willingness to surrender to the moment. It's easy to get distracted by our own thoughts or by the need to respond quickly. But when we allow ourselves to truly listen, we open the door to greater understanding, deeper connection, and more meaningful relationships. We risk being changed by what we hear, but that's exactly what makes transformative listening so powerful. By opening ourselves up to the experiences of others, we invite growth, not just for them, but for ourselves as well. Hope is often viewed as a quiet thing, something that exists in the background, waiting for the right moment to shine. But true hope is far from quiet. It's a loud, forceful act in a world that is built on fear, a world that feeds on uncertainty and despair. Hope is rebellious because it refuses to accept the way things are. It stands up against the tide of negativity and says, "There's more than this. There is something better waiting for us." In a world that tells us to prepare for the worst, to be cautious, and to doubt, hope pushes back. To hope is to resist despair, to stand firm in the belief that despite the odds, things can improve. Take a moment to think about how hope feels when the world around us is uncertain. We often find ourselves in situations where everything seems to be falling apart, whether it's a personal struggle, a loss, or a global crisis. It's easy to give in to fear, to let the overwhelming weight of what seems impossible control us. But hope doesn't bow to those fears. It stands tall even when the situation feels hopeless. It is the voice inside that tells us, even though things are bad now, they don't have to stay that way. Hope is not a denial of the harshness of life, but a refusal to be defeated by it. It's the courage to look at the worst and still believe that something better is possible. Consider the story of someone facing a major setback, perhaps losing a job, going through a breakup, or battling illness. At first, the weight of the situation may feel unbearable. The instinct might be to give in to despair, to accept that life has dealt a harsh hand. But hope, true, rebellious hope, refuses to settle for despair. It says, "This isn't the end. There is still a future where things are better, where I can rebuild and grow." Hope is the strength to start over, to try again even when the odds are stacked against you. It is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act in spite of it. When people are faced with adversity, they often say things like, "It's not going to get better," or "There's no point in trying." These words are born from fear, from the belief that the world is an unforgiving place where nothing changes. It is easy to fall into that mindset, to believe that nothing we do matters because the system is too broken or the problems are too big. But that is where hope begins. Hope isn't the easy choice, it's the rebellious one. It challenges the narrative that things can't improve, that the status quo is unchangeable. Hope demands that we look beyond the present struggle and envision a different future, one where change is possible. This doesn't mean hope is blind or naive. To hope doesn't mean to ignore reality, to pretend that everything is fine when it's not. Instead, it means acknowledging the difficulties and still choosing to move forward, still choosing to fight. Hope is the refusal to let the darkness define the story. It's the act of saying, yes, the world can be difficult, and yes, the odds might be against me, but I will keep going because I believe something better is possible. It's not about waiting for the world to change on its own. Hope is the spark that pushes us to act, to make that change happen. Think of how hope shows up in small, everyday actions. It's easy to feel helpless when faced with a large problem, like a global crisis or a personal challenge that seems insurmountable. But hope isn't always about grand gestures. It's often about the little things. It's about showing up every day, even when it feels like nothing is changing. It's about choosing to be kind to someone, even when the world feels harsh. Hope is in the quiet moments, in the persistence to keep going despite setbacks. It's about waking up every morning with the belief that today can be different, that today is an opportunity to take one more step toward a better future. Rebellious hope is also deeply tied to the power of community. When one person stands in hope, they are often met with doubt from those around them. People will say, "It's impossible," or "You'll never make it." Hope challenges that mindset. It's the voice that says, "If I can believe in a better tomorrow, maybe I can help you believe too." In this way, hope doesn't just resist despair on an individual level. It spreads. It becomes contagious. When one person acts in hope, they inspire others to do the same. A community built on hope is one that resists the forces of fear and negativity. It lifts each other up, even in the hardest times. Consider the ways that social movements throughout history have relied on rebellious hope. When people were fighting for civil rights, for gender equality, or for climate action, they were standing in hope. In the face of overwhelming opposition, they refused to accept the world as it was. They believed that a better future was possible, and they acted on that belief. It wasn't easy. The challenges were immense, the odds were against them, and many times they faced failure or rejection. But they kept going, and in doing so, they inspired others to join the fight, to hold on to hope, and to work together for change. This is the power of rebellious hope. It is not just about individual belief. It is about creating a collective force that can change the world. Hope, in its truest form, isn't about sitting back and waiting for things to get better. It's about actively participating in the process of change. It's the belief that we can make a difference, no matter how small our actions might seem. It's about standing in the face of fear and saying, "I'm not going to let this define me." It's about taking the first step, even when the path is unclear. Rebellious hope is not about pretending everything is perfect or denying the challenges we face. It's about acknowledging the difficulty and still choosing to move forward, one step at a time, because we believe that it matters. In a world full of fear, hope becomes an act of defiance. It's the refusal to accept that the present situation is the final word. Hope says that we are not doomed to live in despair, that we are not defined by our struggles. It challenges us to see beyond the immediate moment and imagine a better future. It is a powerful force, one that can move mountains, one small act of belief at a time. When you choose to hope, you are not ignoring the truth of your circumstances. You are simply choosing to see a greater truth, that things can change, that progress is possible, and that no matter what happens, you will continue to move forward. Hope doesn't ask for perfection or guarantee immediate results. It simply asks for the courage to believe in something better, even when it feels far away. And in doing so, it creates a path toward that better future. Hope is rebellious because it refuses to be controlled by fear, by doubt, or by the limits others place on us. It is an act of resistance, a declaration that we will not give up on the possibility of a brighter tomorrow. Hope is often viewed as a quiet thing, something that exists in the background, waiting for the right moment to shine. But true hope is far from quiet. It's a loud, forceful act in a world that is built on fear, a world that feeds on uncertainty and despair. Hope is rebellious because it refuses to accept the way things are. It stands up against the tide of negativity and says, there's more than this. There is something better waiting for us. In a world that tells us to prepare for the worst, to be cautious, and to doubt, hope pushes back. To hope is to resist despair, to stand firm in the belief that despite the odds, things can improve. Take a moment to think about how hope feels when the world around us is uncertain. We often find ourselves in situations where everything seems to be falling apart, whether it's a personal struggle, a loss, or a global crisis. It's easy to give in to fear, to let the overwhelming weight of what seems impossible control us. But hope doesn't bow to those fears. It stands tall even when the situation feels hopeless. It is the voice inside that tells us, even though things are bad now, they don't have to stay that way. Hope is not a denial of the harshness of life, but a refusal to be defeated by it. It's the courage to look at the worst and still believe that something better is possible. Consider the story of someone facing a major setback, perhaps losing a job, going through a breakup, or battling illness. At first, the weight of the situation may feel unbearable. The instinct might be to give in to despair, to accept that life has dealt a harsh hand. But hope, true, rebellious hope, refuses to settle for despair. It says, this isn't the end. There is still a future where things are better, where I can rebuild and grow. Hope is the strength to start over, to try again, even when the odds are stacked against you. It is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act in spite of it. When people are faced with adversity, they often say things like, it's not going to get better, or there's no point in trying. These words are born from fear, from the belief that the world is an unforgiving place where nothing changes. It is easy to fall into that mindset, to believe that nothing we do matters because the system is too broken or the problems are too big. But that is where hope begins. Hope isn't the easy choice, it's the rebellious one. It challenges the narrative that things can't improve, that the status quo is unchangeable. Hope demands that we look beyond the present struggle and envision a different future, one where change is possible. This doesn't mean hope is blind or naive. To hope doesn't mean to ignore reality, to pretend that everything is fine when it's not. Instead, it means acknowledging the difficulties and still choosing to move forward, still choosing to fight. Hope is the refusal to let the darkness define the story. It's the act of saying, yes, the world can be difficult, and yes, the odds might be against me, but I will keep going because I believe something better is possible. It's not about waiting for the world to change on its own. Hope is the spark that pushes us to act, to make that change happen. Think of how hope shows up in small, everyday actions. It's easy to feel helpless when faced with a large problem, like a global crisis or a personal challenge that seems insurmountable. But hope isn't always about grand gestures. It's often about the little things. It's about showing up every day, even when it feels like nothing is changing. It's about choosing to be kind to someone, even when the world feels harsh. Hope is in the quiet moments, in the persistence to keep going despite setbacks. It's about waking up every morning with the belief that today can be different, that today is an opportunity to take one more step toward a better future. Rebellious hope is also deeply tied to the power of community. When one person stands in hope, they are often met with doubt from those around them. People will say, it's impossible, or you'll never make it. Hope challenges that mindset. It's the voice that says, if I can believe in a better tomorrow, maybe I can help you believe too. In this way, hope doesn't just resist despair on an individual level. It spreads. It becomes contagious. When one person acts in hope, they inspire others to do the same. A community built on hope is one that resists the forces of fear and negativity. It lifts each other up, even in the hardest times. Consider the ways that social movements throughout history have relied on rebellious hope. When people were fighting for civil rights, for gender equality, or for climate action, they were standing in hope. In the face of overwhelming opposition, they refused to accept the world as it was. They believed that a better future was possible, and they acted on that belief. It wasn't easy. The challenges were immense, the odds were against them, and many times they faced failure or rejection. But they kept going, and in doing so, They inspired others to join the fight, to hold on to hope and to work together for change. This is the power of rebellious hope. It is not just about individual belief. It is about creating a collective force that can change the world. Hope, in its truest form, isn't about sitting back and waiting for things to get better. It's about actively participating in the process of change. It's the belief that we can make a difference, no matter how small our actions might seem. It's about standing in the face of fear and saying, "I'm not going to let this define me." It's about taking the first step, even when the path is unclear. Rebellious hope is not about pretending everything is perfect or denying the challenges we face. It's about acknowledging the difficulty and still choosing to move forward, one step at a time, because we believe that it matters. In a world full of fear, hope becomes an act of defiance. It's the refusal to accept that the present situation is the final word. Hope says that we are not doomed to live in despair, that we are not defined by our struggles. It challenges us to see beyond the immediate moment and imagine a better future. It is a powerful force, one that can move mountains, one small act of belief at a time. When you choose to hope, you are not ignoring the truth of your circumstances. You are simply choosing to see a greater truth, that things can change, that progress is possible, and that, no matter what happens, you will continue to move forward. Hope doesn't ask for perfection or guarantee immediate results. It simply asks for the courage to believe in something better, even when it feels far away. And in doing so, it creates a path toward that better future. Hope is rebellious because it refuses to be controlled by fear, by doubt, or by the limits others place on us. It is an act of resistance, a declaration that we will not give up on the possibility of a brighter tomorrow. The idea that the soul is something contained within us, like a small, fixed point inside our bodies, has been a long-standing belief in many cultures and philosophies. We often think of ourselves as separate from our souls, like we have something within us, something that makes us who we are, but exists independently of our physical selves. But what if that isn't true? What if the soul isn't a thing that's inside us at all, but rather we are inside it? This idea flips the common understanding of our existence on its head. Rather than imagining consciousness and the soul as something we carry with us, we could see ourselves as temporary vessels, moving through an expansive and boundless consciousness. Instead of being the center of everything, we might be part of a larger, more fluid system, a system that isn't confined to our minds and bodies, but stretches beyond us, wrapping around us and everything else. Think about the way we experience the world. We are often trapped in the idea that our thoughts and feelings are entirely our own, that they begin and end within us. We consider our actions as being fully ours, driven by our personal desires and motivations. But if consciousness is not confined, if it's expansive, then we might not be the creators of all our thoughts. Our individual selves might be a part of something much larger, a network of shared experiences and energies, and what we think of as our own thoughts could be influenced, shaped, or even directed by this greater consciousness. In this view, our minds are not isolated islands, but points within a vast ocean of awareness. We exist within the soul, rather than the soul residing within us. The soul, in this sense, would not be something that's limited to a single life or body. It would be the underlying fabric of all things, an expansive field of energy and awareness that everything participates in. Our bodies, our individual lives, are brief moments, temporary experiences that move through this greater field, much like a bird flying through the sky. The bird doesn't create the sky, it simply moves within it, and eventually it passes through to another place. Similarly, our consciousness might just be passing through this expansive soul, gaining experiences along the way before moving on to something else. Imagine how this shift in perspective could change the way we approach life. If we are simply passing through the soul rather than holding it inside us, then the experiences we go through aren't solely ours. They are part of a larger, shared journey, a journey that transcends our individual existence. This might help us see the world in a more connected way, recognizing that our lives are not just individual stories, but part of a much bigger narrative. Each person, each experience, would no longer feel isolated or insignificant, because everything would be linked by this vast, all-encompassing soul. Take, for example, the way we feel about other people. We often talk about being connected to others, but what if this connection isn't just a metaphor? What if the consciousness we experience is not limited to us, but extends into the hearts and minds of those around us? We might feel another person's joy or pain, not because of our own personal experiences or empathy, but because we are participating in the same expansive soul. The feelings we experience could be echoes of a shared consciousness, rather than solely the product of our individual minds. This would mean that our relationships are not just between two separate beings, but part of a greater awareness, where everything we feel is part of a larger whole. Consider moments of profound connection, like when two people sit together, sharing a deep conversation, or when you find yourself in the presence of something beautiful, a piece of music, a piece of art, or a natural landscape that takes your breath away. These experiences often feel like they tap into something beyond our everyday selves. In these moments, we might sense that we are touching something greater than ourselves, something vast and timeless. If consciousness is expansive, this feeling might be a recognition that we are experiencing a glimpse of the soul itself, that we are connected to something larger than our individual existence. This idea of consciousness as expansive, as something we pass through rather than something we carry, also challenges how we think about life and death. We often view life as a finite journey, with birth and death marking the beginning and end of our existence. But if consciousness is part of a much larger eternal soul, then death may not be the end of our awareness. It might just be a transition, a moment when our individual experience passes on and merges back into the greater whole. Death wouldn't be a closing of the book, but a turning of the page, a shift in the form our consciousness takes within the expansive soul. We might no longer be individual beings, but part of a collective awareness, just as a drop of water merges with the ocean. This doesn't mean that life, as we experience it now, isn't important. Quite the opposite. It means that every moment we live is part of something much larger than ourselves. If our lives are part of a greater soul, then each thought, each action, each relationship is not just personal, but part of a vast, interconnected experience. The choices we make, the way we interact with others, and the way we see the world are part of a much bigger story. We are not isolated beings moving through the world. We are a part of a greater consciousness, a greater soul that is living and evolving over time. Every moment matters because every moment is a contribution to the greater whole. Imagine how this view of existence could change the way we approach life. If we are a part of something bigger, something greater than ourselves, then we might treat the world and each other differently. We might see every person, every experience as part of this shared soul, each one a unique expression of the same vast awareness. The way we treat others would be a reflection of how we understand ourselves, not as isolated individuals, but as interconnected points within a larger consciousness. Our actions would carry weight because they are part of something far bigger than our personal lives. Every thought, every moment of kindness or anger would ripple through the soul, touching everything in ways we cannot fully understand. This perspective could also give us greater peace and comfort in the face of the unknown. When we experience hardship or suffering, it can be easy to feel alone, to think that our pain is something unique to us. But if we see ourselves as part of an expansive collective soul, then we understand that our pain is not isolated. It is shared. The soul experiences all of it: joy, sorrow, love, loss, not just through one individual, but through all of us. Our pain becomes part of something greater, something that is constantly evolving and learning. The hardships we face are not the end of the story, but part of the larger process of growth and awareness. The idea that we are inside the soul, rather than the soul being inside us, offers a new way to think about consciousness, existence, and our place in the world. If we are passing through, if our consciousness is just one point in a much larger, expansive soul, then our lives are not just isolated events, but part of a greater unfolding. Every action, every thought, every connection is part of the greater experience of life. We are not alone in our journey. We are all part of something larger, something timeless and expansive. And in this vastness, we can find meaning not in seeking to define ourselves, but in recognizing that we are part of a greater whole, one that is ever evolving and always connected. We often look up to the stars and wonder about the vastness of the universe. We marvel at the endless reaches of outer space, where galaxies, stars, and planets stretch out beyond our comprehension. Scientists send probes to distant planets, trying to understand what lies beyond our world. They search for life on other planets, hoping to find clues that will tell us more about our place in the universe. Yet, for all our curiosity about the outer world, there is one place that remains far more mysterious than anything we can discover in space: the human heart. Outer space may be infinite, but the depths of the human heart are just as vast, if not more so. No telescope or spacecraft can take us inside ourselves to understand what lies beneath the surface. We can study the stars and the planets for years, but the complexities of our own emotions, thoughts, and experiences remain elusive, even to us. In many ways, the human inner world is the final frontier, a vast, unexplored space that we are still trying to understand. Consider the way we think and feel. Our minds are constantly at work, processing thoughts, memories, and emotions. But despite all the advances in psychology and neuroscience, we still don't fully understand how these processes work or why we feel the way we do. We can describe the brain's functions and map the pathways that control our actions, but understanding the motivations behind our choices, the root causes of our fears, or the depths of our love remains an ongoing challenge. It's easy to look outward, at the stars or at the world around us, and assume that those are the great mysteries. But in truth, our internal world is far more complex and difficult to navigate. Take, for example, the way we experience love. Love is one of the most powerful emotions we can feel, yet it remains hard to define, let alone understand. We know what it feels like to love and to be loved, but why it happens, how it develops, and how it shapes us over time is something we still don't fully comprehend. We can analyze relationships, study the dynamics between people, and even examine the brain chemistry involved. But the emotional depth of love remains one of the most profound and mysterious parts of the human experience. Love often defies logic and explanation. It's a force that can build bridges or create rifts, that can make us feel alive or leave us heartbroken. The power of love lies not in its science, but in its mystery, its ability to connect us to something far beyond ourselves and to change us in ways we can't predict. Then there's the concept of identity, the question of who we truly are. We spend much of our lives trying to understand ourselves, shaping our identities based on our experiences, relationships, and the roles we play in society. But even as we construct a sense of who we are, there are still parts of us that remain hidden, even from ourselves. Why do we make the decisions we do? Why do we sometimes act in ways that contradict what we think we believe? The human heart, in all its complexity, is not always a simple reflection of the mind. Sometimes our actions don't align with our intentions, and sometimes our desires are in conflict with our beliefs. These contradictions are not easily explained, and yet they shape who we are. Think of a time when you made a choice that didn't align with your values. Maybe you acted out of fear, out of self-interest, or out of a desire for approval. In those moments, the reason behind your actions may have felt clear, but the deeper motivations, the emotions and thoughts that influenced you, are not always easy to understand. Why did you choose that path? What was going on inside your heart that led you to that decision? Even after the choice has been made, it can be difficult to reconcile it with your true self. This inner struggle is something we all experience, and it highlights just how much of our inner world remains a mystery, even to us. Another aspect of the human heart that is difficult to understand is the way we handle pain. We've all experienced loss, disappointment, and grief. These are emotions that are universal, yet deeply personal. No two people experience pain the same way. Even within ourselves, pain can manifest in different forms: anger, sadness, numbness, or even a sense of relief. The emotions we experience during difficult times are complex, layered, and often contradictory. We may find ourselves grieving over something we didn't even realize was important, or feeling guilty for not reacting the way we should. Why does pain affect us in such unique ways? Why do some people seem to heal faster than others? And why do we sometimes carry pain with us, even long after the event that caused it? The answers to these questions are not easy to find, and they point to the profound mystery of the human heart. We also struggle with understanding the emotions that shape our relationships with others. Take friendship, for instance. We all know the importance of friends in our lives. They offer support, laughter, and companionship. But what makes a friendship meaningful? What is it about certain people that draw us in while others remain distant? Why do we feel an instant connection with some and struggle to relate to others, even when we share common interests? Friendships, like all relationships, are filled with emotions that go beyond words. We connect not just through shared experiences, but through the unspoken understanding that exists between us. This quiet bond is something we can feel but can't always explain. And just as in love, the mystery of human connection runs deep. We might spend years with someone, only to discover that our relationship has changed in ways we couldn't have predicted. The emotional currents that flow between people are often unseen, and they have the power to shape the course of our lives in ways we don't fully understand. Even in our most routine moments, we find that the human heart is filled with mystery. Think about the way we respond to the world around us, the things that move us, inspire us, or make us feel at peace. The beauty of a sunset, the sound of a favorite song, the warmth of a kind word, all of these can stir something deep within us. But why do these things affect us so powerfully? Why do we find certain experiences so moving while others leave us unmoved? The human heart is constantly responding to the world in ways we can't predict. It's a space that is constantly shifting, influenced by our experiences, emotions, and memories. And in that shifting, there is a deep well of mystery that we will never fully comprehend. The universe is vast, yes, but the true mystery lies not in the far reaches of space, but in the uncharted territory within ourselves. The outer world may be infinite, but the inner world of the human heart is just as boundless, just as complex, and just as elusive. We may spend our lives trying to understand ourselves, trying to uncover the depths of our emotions, thoughts, and desires. And though we may make progress, we will never fully understand all that lies within. The human heart is a universe of its own, one that we will continue to explore, uncovering new layers and mysteries with every step we take. And it is in that mystery, in the search for understanding, that the greatest part of our humanity lies.